I can't wait to see some of the comments that I get from this. She's a whack job. She's going to kill people.
When people hear your story, their minds will go into a blender because they can't compute. Smoke may come out of their ears because they're like, wait a second. There is somebody who is a conservative gay who now has decided maybe they're not gay, who also has had a career in tech, but also is interested in iridology, and then also is non-judgmental of other people. Like when you add all that up, it's like, wait, I thought that like conservatives were supposed to do this, or liberals were supposed to do this, or I thought gays this, or straight people like, if you literally ask me, how many people check all those boxes? Like I've met one person in my life, you.
We're a wild card for sure. Yeah.
What's up, guys? Bang, bang. I'm here with Elle. The reason why I want to do this entire conversation is because I saw online iridology or iridology, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And I was like, what the hell is this? I went down this deep rabbit hole, and I feel like I now have such a small amount of information about a really important topic that I figured I'd go and I'd find somebody who actually understands what they're talking about. So let's just start with like, what is this? Did people are taking pictures of your eyes and they could tell how healthy you are?
Yeah, or how unhealthy you are, just depending, right? So the great thing about the eyes is it is the only soft tissue analysis that exists at present today, right? It's extremely accurate, and it depends on all the nerve endings communicating to the iris or the eyeball. And I always akin it to, think about a cell phone, right? You've got processing, you have your software, everything's communicating in this device. How the hell would you even know what this information is, how to access it, unless you had a screen? And that's how the eyes are similarly.
So the eyes are the screen.
The eyes are the screen.
It's receiving all this information and it's basically telling us. And this is real dumb.
And it's historic.
Okay, so this is like, we're going to go very dumb questions throughout this entire conversation because I don't have any good questions on this topic.
All good questions.
But if we start with, I see people sometimes they have like yellow eyes and some people have like really white eyes. I'm assuming that is a piece of this, but really you're talking about there's the iris of the eye and then there's like the color of the eye and all these things. Can you help me understand like what is feeding into this like screen that is the eye?
Sure. So taking it super basic, you're correct. Anytime you see these different colorations or black spots and whatnot in the eye, that's simply the state of the tissues and the lymphatic system as a whole. The iris, or rather the colored part of the eye, gives you an entire picture of the entire system, the entire body. There's really only two colors of eyes. And there's different schools of thought depending on the iridology source that you look into. Myself, my mentor, and the pioneer of iridology, Dr. Bernard Jensen, subscribed to there are only two colors. And
only two eye colors?
Only two eye colors.
Okay.
And we've proven this over and over again with all obviously the eyes that we've taken and the deep detoxes and cleansing that we've done, and we've noticed the changes in them. We've only ever seen two colors, and that's brown and blue. And the variations, you can go dark blue, you can go light blue, dark brown, light brown.
So no green or anything like that?
No green. So that's a great question because, anytime we see green, when you take a picture of it really closely, you can always see the true color with the proper lighting. You can see the true color. I say, look at the sky. If there's tons of clouds covering the sky, you can't see blue. And ultimately, you want to see that blue sky, right? So the clouds are simply lymphatic congestion, waste that the body hasn't eliminated.
Are green-eyed people unhealthy? Is that what you're saying? That sounds like a yes.
I have a really hard time calling anyone unhealthy, right? It's because when we approach bodies from a cellular detoxification standpoint, we always go down to the very base of that. And that's how strong are your genetics, how strong is your cellular structure. And you can see that within the iris, and if you look at, some of the pictures that I've taken, you see these very, thin white lines, or hopefully just thin lines throughout the eye. They kind of look like, spider webs almost, but they should be kind of straight and close together. You don't want to see them all crazy wonky. That would show the person's cellular strength. So I can sit here and say, yeah, maybe you've eaten like shit and you've got all this backup, but underneath all this, you have a very strong cell structure. And for all intents and purposes, you're healthy. This is interesting because
to describe the process itself, you basically are taking a camera. It could be a cell phone or it could be a specialized camera.
Yeah,
but you
now with the
basically
technology,
are putting it very, very close to the eyeball. You're taking a photo of the eye. I'm going to think of it as like under a microscope, essentially, as you're able to see very close to what's going on in the eye. And it's one thing to be like, oh, your current state of your lymphatic system. We'll talk about that in a second, what that is. But also you're saying that you can understand the genetics of someone.
Right.
How is that possible?
So the body is an amazing thing.
Yes.
It's an amazing machine. And if you consider that the nerves are constantly communicating with one another, right? So we're built inside the womb. That obviously is a genetic mixture between mom and dad, or, it's always mom and dad, however you went about.
They're trying to change that.
Well, yeah, and that's a different conversation. It's one way or fashion or the other, how you got around to getting that baby formed. You're always going to have those genetic dispositions that are passed down through the generations.
Okay.
And that's all they are dispositions. Could you go in and help fix genetics? Sure. Would that take an immense amount of time and you're really going to have probably no fun in this lifetime, ever eat anything outside of a piece of fruit? Sure. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to enjoy. So when we look at genetic dispositions, they show up in the eye very clearly, and you can tell the length of how long that genetic disposition or genetic inherent weakness has been in the family, right? So I always tell my clients, don't get freaked out if you see a genetic weakness, because ultimately what we're going to do, or what you don't want to do, is give it the environment to open Pandora's box, right? So that's what we focus on. So I always say, look, I can see the genetic dispositions. I can see how strong the genetics have been throughout your family, but don't let that deter you, because ultimately it's going to come down to your specific system and what terrain you're giving it to either come out or not.
This may sound kind of weird, but like I almost think that you're describing it in a way of like you have this disposition, and then what you do in your lifetime can turn it on or off, almost like a light switch. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Yeah, coming from the physical side, obviously there's give and take on what you put in your body. There's cause and effect always, right? If you throw in a bunch of certain mucus-forming foods, or what we call acid ash-forming foods, you're going to see some bad effects. If you put in great magnetics, fruits, berries, melons, some veggies, you're going to see some better. But then there always comes down to the non-physical component of that as well. If you sit in fear, right, mentality is intention is huge when it comes to your outlook of your health, because everything physical has a non-physical component, and you're worried, I'm going to get dementia, dad had dementia, grandpa had dementia. Most likely you're going to create your own reality, depending on how, it doesn't really matter necessarily.
Yeah.
So there's always two factors to it.
Like your mind can basically turn some of this stuff on in like a really weird way. If you have anxiety and you keep saying, hey, I have high anxiety, that can lead to actually getting more and more anxiety. But the same thing could happen with things that people would consider more kind of medical, ailments, or things like dementia, et cetera.
Right.
Is the more you think about it, actually, the more that you increase the odds that you're going to get it.
Right. And there's people who, and that's why I always say that whenever, in my opinion, when we approach individuals who are, they're ready to be well. They want to feel better. Or they want to get ahead of some of these things. They've watched mom and dad, grandpa, grandma, great grandpa. They don't want to continue that on, or they're wanting to bring life into this earth, and they want to make sure they don't pass that down to their kids. When we get those people, it's important to always address that non-physical component, to get the mentality on board with the physical detoxification process, or whatever that may be, because if they're not ready mentally, emotionally, it's not going to be as effective physically. And so that's how I approach it with clients.
What is the lymphatic system? Because this is how I discovered this entire new world. And I should call out, like, there's a lot of people I asked before we had this conversation. Yep. And like, it was pretty split. Half the people were like, this is complete nonsense. Like, this doesn't work. It's not real medicine. Then there was another group of people who were like, no, this is exactly kind of what you're talking about. Like, the eyes are the screen. Everything that happens within your body can be seen in the eye. And really, my understanding is that the eyes are a reflection of what's going on in the lymphatic system for people who kind of do this. But I don't know what the lymphatic system is.
Sure. So lymphatic system is your sewer system.
Okay.
Simply put. So everything that you yourself eat and excrete, so do your cells. So all the systems in the body depend on the lymphatic system working very well, right? Whether that's your endocrine system, so glands, hormones, ultimately your 75% of your health equation depends on the state of your lymphatic system. So when we look at a lymphatic system, it's simply the digestion, right? Kidneys, adrenals, obviously liver, pancreas, but the state of those depend on the sewer system. So it's all the pipes, making sure everything gets passed down. The biggest components to the lymphatic system are obviously, lymph nodes, and then the ability to, and the cells carrying, into the kidneys to then go out through the elimination,
Pooping and peeing.
Pooping and peeing, right? So, but unless you have the filtration down, unless you have the lymph nodes working well, everything's communicating and dumping into the kidneys and then going out through, urine or poop, right? Then if those are down, good luck. That's where we start to see some of those issues. So it's just
what changes the state of this? Makes it a good lymphatic system or a bad lymphatic system? Is it things that you eat? Is it activities you do? Is it genetics? Like what kind of puts you in a good state there or a bad state?
Yeah.
Hey guys, what's going on? I hope that you're enjoying this conversation, but I wanted to interrupt for a quick second and tell you about a brand new conference that I'm hosting on March 4th at the Miami Beach Convention Center. The event is called LYCEUM Miami, and tickets are completely free for anyone who wants to come. I'm bringing together many of the most popular guests from the podcast over the last couple of years. Some of the guest speakers that we've already announced are people like Vivek Ramaswamy from Strive Asset Management, or Delian and Mike Solana from Founders Fund, Chris Williamson from the Modern Wisdom podcast, Cody Sanchez from Contrarian Thinking, and billionaire Christian Augermeyer, among many others. I've got a number of amazing surprise guests as well, some that you definitely will not expect, and others that come from walks of life that you will be scratching your head as to how I even got them to show up. But come check out LYCEUM Miami on March 4th. The LYCEUM was a public gym in Athens, Greece, where people used to come together, talk about ideas, and debate topics that were important to society. I want to meet people in person, in real life, once again, after 3 years of a hiatus from real life events. And so I'm hosting the event. And as I mentioned, anyone from anywhere can come to this event completely for free. All you need to do is go to lyceummiami.com and you'll be able to pick up a free general admission ticket. Make sure you claim your ticket in order to get in through the doors. LYCEUM Miami is going to be a great time. So come check it out. Come hang out with me, many of the popular guests from the podcast, and other like-minded individuals. LYCEUM Miami, March 4th, Miami Beach Convention Center. I hope to see you there. All right, let's get back into this conversation.
A few factors, but I'm gonna say the things that make the most impact are the diet, right?
Okay.
What you put in your body, which can be liquids, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, whether that herbs, whatever it is. So anything you intake in the body. And then again, genetics don't play too much of a part in that because those are already inherent weaknesses. It's whether or not you are on more the acid side of chemistry or you're on more close to that base side of chemistry.
What is that? Acid versus base?
So there's only two sides of chemistry. Acids are the corrosive, the things that break things. If you think about acid, right? It's look at Coke. Drop a cornflake in Coke. Good luck, right? That's low pH. It's about 3 pH. That's what breaks down tissues. But when you look at acid levels in the body, there should only be one place where there's acid, and that's in the stomach chamber, right?
You're breaking down food.
You're breaking down food.
I basically am going to have a biology degree by the end of this.
It's amazing. I'm really getting my nerd out here. So you want to keep that at a certain level of acid. You don't want to mess with that acid chamber, right? You don't want it to go too crazy high up, and you don't want it to go other way because nature doesn't like extremes. It doesn't like high acidity, and it doesn't like high alkalinity. It wants base, closer to alkaline chemistry. But everything that we talk about when it comes to lymphatic system is what happens in the body. So you could look at something like an apple, or you could look at something like a piece of meat. And they've done tests where they'll measure the acidity level or its energy factor frequency outside the body. And then when you put it inside the body, how does the body change when that food is then broken down and digested? Obviously, the faster burning foods are gonna be a less acidic process in the body and cause less waste or leftover, right? And then of course, that's more towards your fruits, berries, melons, some veggies and herbs and so forth. High magnetics. Super acidic is gonna be that, the dairies, meats, cheeses, stuff like that, starches, heavy starch. And then, of course, your drugs and alcohols and such like that. So there's always these levels. When you're looking at the body, it's very simple. When you're looking at chemistry, there's always just two sides. So the body's either on one side or the other. And I would say this, the majority of individuals are sitting in that acidic side because of our diet and that's what we're taught.
And so let's go through maybe a bunch of different types of foods real quick, and you can kind of help me understand,
Sure.
like, maybe it's not as black and white as good or bad, but just like more or less, maybe is a better way to think about it. So I'm guessing candy, ice cream, like things that we would consider desserts or sweets are bad.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, that was not a very
I'm not
confident.
the biggest fan of good and bad, but
okay.
They do leave the acidic ash. They will cause you to go into the acid side of chemistry.
Okay. And dairy is also included in that because things like ice cream are full of dairy and all that. So it's kind of like in the same type of category. Okay.
Yeah.
Meat. Meat is a big one because there's a lot of people who I've talked with. Carnivore diet, the protein heavy diet, keto. We can go through all of the different variations. It is probably the number one diet that people have come on here and talked about and been like, this is what I eat. So forget what they think the benefits are or whatever. It's like what they actually eat themselves. What are the pros and cons of those types of kind of just dietary regimens?
Sure. I'll set this as a foundational point. Again, going back to there's physical and then there's the non-physical component to this. I will say that there are foods and chemistry that once put in the body are going to render a result whether you believe it or not, right? It's just science. It's proper chemistry, proper physics. Then there's the side of what your intention is in your relationship with that, right? The majority of individuals are doing things because they feel they should, because they feel forced to, they feel that it will get a certain result, and they're not necessarily in alignment with it. And so I always give that caveat because what I don't want to ever tell someone is, well, don't eat this because it's bad. I don't know their relationship with that food. I don't know where they are, intentionally and emotionally with that. They may do very well. This is why we can see people who you sit there and go, they should have fucking died years ago. They eat like shit. They take all this stuff. They smoke, drink, yet they're still up and running in late 90s. How are they not dead yet?
Warren Buffett. I don't know if he smokes and drinks, but that dude eats McDonald's and drinks Coca-Cola and sees candy like every single day. I don't know how he's still alive.
These are these individuals that I say this comes back to always consider the intention. That man has no resistance whatsoever towards that food. He is in alignment. This is what I eat. This is what I like. And this is what fuels my body.
It's crazy.
Now, if we open the motherfucker up, he probably looks like crap. But he's a happy, wealthy, successful, and he is in alignment with his life. So this is why I'm very careful about saying, hey, don't do that. That's bad. This is good. This is the only way to get there. There's always the roads to whatever outcome we're looking for.
Kind of what works for you.
Yes. But if we're just going to talk chemistry and physics, then there's little to no benefit of eating a dead piece of flesh. Because when you look at the actual biology of a human, we're a species. Not one person eats differently than the other person based on a blood. The blood type doesn't matter because, again, blood is only 25% of this equation. All it does is carry nutrients back and forth. That's it. It always comes down to what's built for our biology. And we are built as more frugivore type beings, right? You look at our teeth structure, you look at our spine, you look at the fact that we don't have smooth intestinal tracts. We have very pocketed intestinal tracts, so we don't process meat very well at all, as compared to a cat, who's the only really true carnivore on this planet. They just have
a cat.
A cat. So the felines are the only true carnivore. If you look at their intestinal tract, it's very smooth just to pass that protein down. They need minimal type thing. The thing about protein that everyone's going for is I would love to see us get to a point of consciousness where we start changing how we are getting those amino acids. I would love for people to start saying amino acids because that's really what they're going for. Amino acids are the building blocks. So you get these, we get bodybuilders all the time and we're fixing them up after they've gone and built themselves to a certain degree, but their kidneys are shutting down because that's what proteins do.
Can you be a bodybuilder and not eat meat?
Absolutely. Go look at, there's a few amazing, I'm fruitarian on Instagram. He's pretty well built. Namai, I can't remember his last name. I think it's Delgado, but Namai, he's never eaten a piece of meat in his life. The man is huge.
How do you do that?
Well, look at a gorilla. Ask the gorilla. You see this all over the place now. Ask a gorilla where he gets his meat. And after he's done tearing your head off, he'll let you know it was that tree over there. When you break down chemistry, you gotta look at the way our body uses it. And when you eat a piece of meat, I get what you're going for, but it would be better on your system and healthier and would actually have a faster effect if you just went straight to amino acids, which are the tissue building chemistry.
So what's fascinating about the different diets, let's just take vegetarian versus like a carnivore diet. It's kind of two versions of different extremes. Both of them actually have some commonality, which is don't eat a lot of like chocolate and candy and ice cream and like all like the bad stuff. Don't eat a lot of processed food, right? It's almost like within the bucket of clean eating, some people go extreme on vegetarian, some go extreme on the carnivore diet, but actually the like 0 to 1 leap is like leave the modern diet behind of processed food and all the processed sugars and things like that. And just start eating clean. And then the variations there, yes, there are differences. People disagree with them. Maybe it's because of their body, maybe it's because of how they feel or their relationship. But actually, it's not as big of a difference between vegetarian and meat as it is processed versus non-processed diet. Is that like a fair way to think about it?
It's very fair. That's why you get a lot of people saying, well, I went vegan. Well, have you seen some of the vegan food? It's not even food. It's not even real. The body doesn't understand how to break down complex chemistry. It's the same as going and eating one of these, not to put down any certain brands, but you just look at the structure of the Beyond Burger. The body doesn't know what to do with this, just like it doesn't know what to do with straight magnesium supplements.
What happens when somebody eats one of those Beyond Burgers?
Oh God, it's
because it's soy based. Theirs are, or they have a different
they
composition.
Pea protein, which I don't knock pea protein. I think that if again, it depends on what your outcome is. If I have an individual that's like, look, I'm not ready to get down to these issues and fix these. I need to go perform and go model and bodybuild and win the competition. Cool, then I would rather you do that with a pea protein as opposed to a whey protein. Why? Because again, whey is that dairy base, which is acidic, and it's gonna cause all the mucus forming, which is just gonna end up breaking down your tissues. So I tell people, if you're gonna build correctly. And if you must build and you need to get that fast, then go pea protein. That's not an isolate because then give your kidneys a break a little bit. But most of these bodybuilders, we end up getting after they're done with their career per se, or a lot of the athletes, because by the time they're done, if they don't keep moving and keep living off the epinephrine and basically all the steroids that the animal gives out when it's killed, then all those acids settle in, and that's why you start to see some of these bodybuilders and athletes really, shit hits the fan after they're done moving, after they're done with their career. So we got to kind of cleanse them and rebuild them.
Yeah. What's fascinating is there's a race car driver a couple years ago. I forget exactly who it was, but he went so fast, so often that his body got used to having higher adrenaline levels, and that was kind of like his base level. And then when he retired, naturally the adrenaline levels dropped and the body literally thought that he was dying. And so it started to shut down all of the internal organs. I remember reading about it and just being like, whoa, like that is something where obviously this guy unintentionally trained his body to operate with a base level of adrenaline so much higher than where it naturally was, that when he returned back to the base level, the body basically panicked. It didn't know what to do with it. And so what you're describing is not necessarily just adrenaline, but these other things that people do to their bodies, whether it's whey protein or others that they're doing for either competitive reasons or lifestyle reasons, that when they try to get off of it, it actually causes huge problems for them.
Yeah. Anytime, again, the body wants to find homeostasis. That's just its nature. And so anytime when we stop that activity, that's what we say is we give it tick, tick, tick until shit hits the fan. But I would say like, you got an individual like him whose nervous system is completely down. It's something we can also see in the eye. If you look at an eye and you see like these, you cut a tree and you see the rings inside the tree to figure out how old it is. Well, similarly, the eyes have these rings or indents, and it indicates someone whose nervous system is down or it struggles. And that comes from a lot of high stimulants, high meat, because again, steroids, epinephrine, adrenaline from that animal flesh, or, just high adrenaline when you're doing your work and your activities. And God bless them, you came here to have a fucking great time in life and experience everything. But it also sometimes takes that huge toll. And that's another reason why we're here, because we want those people to continue to enjoy their lifestyle.
Looking at a tree and understanding the age of it after you've cut through it, and also looking at the eye, is there some connection there from like a biological standpoint? Like that's like a very different thing that I think most people would ever assume are related, is your eyeball and a tree.
Yeah.
But like that does make a lot of sense, right? If you're able to tell the age based on an eye and you're able to tell it on a tree, like what is the connection?
Sure, I would say that stress ages you, right? So stress just causes more acidity. And if you look at the tree, even though the tree is not necessarily stressed per se, but you could see that within different environments, depending on the age of that tree, there's going to be more of those. And basically that tree is getting to its point where it then expires to a degree. Trees never really truly die, their roots, and continue to communicate with the others. But when it comes to a human, those rings indicate that level of stress. And I'm going to assume that person is aging faster than they really are their age per se.
So with this lymphatic system, let's say that I eat horribly. I'm eating all the foods I'm not supposed to eat. I'm super stressed out. I drink all the time. I'm doing drugs, like literally everything. I don't work out. Like I'm just the absolute opposite of what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
What is happening to my lymphatic system? And then like, how is that showing up? Obviously we're talking about the eyes, but are there other things that if I'm watching or listening to this, I can like immediately just tell like my lymphatic system's messed up? Is it the color of my skin, or what else can I see that is showing the wear and tear on my body?
Sure. Always look at the skin. The skin never lies. It is the third kidney. So when we, again, go back to that sewer system and the kidneys are down, then the rest of the systems are suffering because your trash isn't getting taken out. So it's just backing up, right? But if those kidneys are down, then the skin takes over, hopefully. Right? If you look at if you have a dark ring, like you can see my eyes, I have a darker ring around the color part of, my iris, means that it's a little tougher for me to sweat through my skin, which if I can't eliminate through my kidneys, then I need to go sweat, right? Because that's the other way. So a lot of people will start to see the acid start to affect the skin, right? Like eczema and so forth. Digestion's a great way to find out where you are. If you're having issues or pain there, that should not be a painful process. It should also be a daily process. But I can't tell you how many people don't shit on a daily. And I sit there and go, oh, so how long has that been sitting there and, obviously putrefying and so forth.
So, all right, hold on a second.
Yeah.
The health of pooping is a topic that I actually am fascinated by because I saw a commercial. This is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. And then I went online, went down this super deep rabbit hole.
I love that you do rabbit holes.
As usual, I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. Which was, I'm going to forget the name of the device, but basically it's like when you sit on the toilet, there's like a stool that you like would pull up and you would put your feet on it. So it would raise your feet like 6 inches, 8 inches off the ground, it looked like. And their argument was it puts your body in a more natural position to poop, which is more akin to, if you went outside and you just squatted down, right? Rather than having your knees at a 90-degree angle, you actually were more at like a 45-degree angle. Yeah. And their claim, which again, I have no clue if it is true or not, was that most people are walking around with like multiple pounds of waste that is in their body that does not come out of their body because they're pooping incorrectly, which on its face is like an absurd claim. And I was like, that sounds like complete bullshit. And then I went and started looking at it, and like, actually there was like a lot of academic research that was explaining like, there might be more to this than you would think. Yeah. And so let's just maybe talk about like the health of pooping.
Love it.
What exactly should someone be doing? And like how often, are like warning signs versus maybe things where like, oh, I'm like,
Sure.
my body's, doing well?
Yeah. First of all,
I did not think we were going to talk about this today.
I
but
love
go
it
ahead.
though. Wait until we get further in it. I have to say, I never thought I'd actually be talking about this, especially on a podcast. I was the most squeamish child. You couldn't talk about crap. I couldn't look at dead bodies. I could barely look at eyes when I first saw them as a kid. To now, we're getting into it, so I love it. Obviously, there's different levels. Your ultimate desire is, you see an animal, a dog. Take a dog, for example. They're mono eaters. They eat pretty much the same thing every single day. Food in, food out. And that's how it should be. And I'm not saying it should be rushing out of you. That's a different problem. It's 30 minutes after you eat, you should be needing to go, right?
30 minutes.
But that's if you're eating the proper diet, right?
Okay.
For that type of digestion, for our biology. 95% of people are not. So I would love to see people get there, but let's be realistic. What you're looking for is really understanding the combinations of food and what to put together and what not to put together. And this is stuff we've known for millennia, right? Mm-hmm. These are things that even the beginning of time knows what not to mix. So when you look at food and the way it breaks down the system, if you eat a protein or a flesh and you eat a starch, which is every single one of our meals out there, right? Fish and chips, pizza, burgers, fries, all of it. That cancels out digestion because carbs digest in the mouth and the rest of it digests in the stomach, right? The acid chamber to break down the starch and stuff like that. So when we intake that, it takes about a good 24 to 48 hours to properly break that down. So the majority of individuals are constipated. They're constipated up to the point, again, we have 20 to 25, depending on who you are, feet of intestines. So you imagine it's going through the system, but it's not getting there properly. It's not breaking down properly.
So if we just took an average American, we said time out, snapshot the intestine system, you're arguing that potentially there could be a day or two worth of food that is still somewhere in that intestinal system.
Oh, now if you want to talk pocketed digestion like we have, there's years.
Years of
years. Food. So one of my favorite books.
You're scaring me so much.
One
right
of my
now.
favorite books in the world, and most people know about this book, but it's like my Bible. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And in this book, the devil, just the conversation with this lower vibrational entity, if you will, is if a man got one whiff of his sewer system, he would probably throw up and pass out and basically want to die, but he would switch his lifestyle up quickly. Again, when we look at all this state of the body, what we put in it based on our diet that we encourage people to eat in the society, everything starts to acidify. So it's like setting fire to it. And it becomes this like mucoid plaque in the pockets of our digestion. So years, and just keeps stuffing and going in there. And eventually what we have in the eye is called a malabsorption ring. And if you get really close in, the little circle around the pupil, so the black part of the iris, you'll see like this faint little border. And that's basically how backed up an individual is in their intestinal tract. And we're talking, my clients, and I've had it, when I've done my detoxing, my clients have pulled out what we call mucoid plaque, and it's long strings of what look like tar.
How does that come out of their body? They poop it out?
Just like worms come out of their body.
Wow.
Yeah. It just comes right out, but
so
it hurts like hell sometimes.
In the picture of the eye, you can basically tell to a degree how backed up someone's intestines are. Yeah. And that could go back, the like clogging of it could literally be years of diet. Years.
I've had people who, obviously by the time they hitting their 50s, they're like, I can't live in this pain anymore. I can't shit for 4 days. Mm-hmm. I've got nothing but migraines, right? Which is all just connected from the GI tract. And so we go and I ask their diet. And if I look at their diet, there's no way they eliminated that. Because again, proper chemistry and physics and the law of nature says those don't digest. So what does the body do? The acids chew it up and store it somewhere. It's trying to move, but it doesn't get anywhere, right? Because the body just can't process that. So, yeah.
So you take a picture of someone's eye. And again, some people don't think that any of this works.
Sure.
the more you're talking, the more I'm like, okay, I want you to take a picture of my eye.
Oh, we are absolutely doing that.
And if you can tell that somebody is very backed up or has a lot of this like plaque that you're describing, how do you get it out? You keep mentioning detox.
Sure.
What do you do? Are you like putting something in their body that like flushes them out, or like what's going on?
So the only way to get at this level of cleansing is fruits, berries, melons, and really just.
And that's all they eat.
That's it. And herbs. We have obviously herbs that help with that, because you could do fruits, berries, and melons. And when we talk about getting at these levels and we're really digging into the systems and trying to cleanse, we're going towards more of the astringent type fruits or the hard pulling. And that's like your dark grapes, your watermelons, your citrus. Those are really aggressive and they pull. It's just, I always tell people, you look at your shower after, when you go to wash it, do you grab the olive oil or do you grab the lemon juice? Well, you grab the lemon juice because that's what gets the scum, right? You need something that digs in, breaks it all down, and then flushes it out. So that's the only way to get through that, is really get to the herbs and the fruits, berries, and melons to really reach that and cleanse it.
Okay. How long do you have to eat? Basically, I'm going to call this the detox diet. How long do you have to eat this before it actually has an impact?
It really depends on the person. It depends on the state of the lymphatic system. Again, we're all built the same way, give or take. Some people, we've had clients that come in, some people are born without a kidney. Or I have a client who they diverted digestion, bypassed it, and it's just, so it's a little different. So every single person is going to be slightly different depending on the state of their organs and so forth, but also the state of the lymphatic system. I've seen people have within 1 to 2 weeks, they're like, I had one guy, I read his eyes and I'd never seen anything like this. And I showed it to my mentor, never in all his years has ever seen anything like this. His stomach area in his eye looked like our brain matter. And it freaked me the hell out. I was like, dude, I don't know. I need a moment with this. And I stepped away for a second and I thought, this kid is riddled with worms. He's just packed with them. Now he is if you looked at him physically, he's like a model-esque body, ripped, just beautiful guy. And I'm like, I'm gonna need you to do something. I'm gonna need you to do a stomach cleanse. Within a week, kid calls me, shitting out worms left and right. Big meat eater, parasites. Any flesh carries those parasites, even fruit carries that. But unless you give those parasites more to eat, then there's that. So
I have a dumb question.
No.
What are worms? Like in your stomach?
Yeah.
Is it like actual?
Yeah, actual worms. There's different types.
Okay.
Tapeworm is probably the most well-known one.
I've heard of that one.
We used to
Thankfully
tell women to
have
ingest
avoided.
those to lose weight, Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was a big thing, I think, in the 20s or 30s. We told women if they wanted to lose weight, just ingest the tapeworm and let. This
the
is
20s are wild.
This is wild, man. I tell you,
Both the 1920s and the 2020s are wild.
They call it the roaring 20s for a reason. This is what I always tell people. This is the level of consciousness that we've gotten to, and I love man's desire to be, to innovate and find new ways and pioneer. I love that. It's just our nature. We're just such curious beings. But sometimes theory doesn't work with the law of nature and doesn't work with actual true science. And this is why I don't fault MDs who don't know about the lymphatic system, because they weren't taught. You won't see me going to get a medical degree because that's not even going to teach me exactly how this body works. They're taught how to treat, how to get certain results in a certain amount of time, and they have to see a ton of people. I can't fault them for not knowing about a lymphatic system, but I'll tell you this.
Why are they not taught about it? I don't understand.
I think it goes back to just consciousness. I think we've got into the let's treat rather than cure. The body knows what to do. We don't cure anybody. The body's already naturally detoxing. The body already knows how to cure itself. You have to give it the right environment and the right properties to do that. The problem is man gets too much in their mind and they think, that sounds great. That piece of meat tastes really good, but it doesn't make any sense. I'd like to believe that we have a little more common sense. We weren't given anything to murder an animal. We weren't given anything to digest that meat down, but we do it because, again, we're just trying to find different ways. And we got out of our natural habitat. We moved into colder regions. We didn't know what the fuck to do because there's no fresh food. It's all dead by the white death snow. So you're next, animal. I just think that we moved our consciousness further away from science.
What would you say? There's a lot of people who are going to watch this and be like, this is complete nonsense.
I love it. And I invite that. I love
because
that.
I eat meat every day.
Yeah.
And my ancestors ate meat. Yeah. And that's what humans were supposed to do. Basically like the carnivore diet folks. What is like the counter argument to that, right? Because they're pointing and they're saying, this is how the ancestors ate. This is exactly what humans have been doing for thousands of years. And like, actually, we shouldn't be eating all the processed stuff, but like eat meat, not just fruits, berries, melons, etc. Like, how do you kind of have a conversation with those people?
One, I basically say, what's your goal? Are you eating because you enjoy the taste of that? You know, I'm not telling anyone, don't eat something because, you know, or rather avoid something that tastes good just because it's going to do well in the body. Because again, this is our playground. This is what we came here to do, is explore, taste, enjoy. So there's that. But I would say, if your goal is to have a vitality-filled life, vitality, where I'm going to live for a long time, I'm not going to have any aches and pains, I'm going to be, you know, svelte, and I'm not going to break down, I'm not going to have the tissues, yada, yada, all this type of stuff, then you would know what side of chemistry to eat. But if you're just like, fuck it, I want to travel everywhere, I want to go hunting, I want to eat this because it's fun, fantastic. I will always come down to, what is your intention in life? What do you truly want? And I think most people, you know, most of my clients I get are in their, you know, late 30s into their 50s, 60s, because they're at this point where they're going, oh, I played around enough and now I'm starting to feel those effects. So now can I switch that up? And it simply is this. I'm not saying never eat meat again. I come from just the detoxification standpoint. Clean up the system. If you're seeing ailments, come to us. We'll help you, you know, give you the information. And I'm a choose your own adventure kind of person. Go out there and choose. Ultimately, you're the only one that's going to feel the effects.
So what's fascinating is what you're talking about is actually more in line from the things that I've seen around optimizing for longevity. So if you want to be a bodybuilder, I think that there's a very small audience that's like, you should be a bodybuilder and you should be a vegetarian, or you should be only eating fruit or whatever, right? Like for whatever reason, right or wrong, people associate build muscle, especially immense amount of muscle like a bodybuilder, with protein, meats, etc. If you go and you just say, hey, I am optimizing for living as long as possible and living as healthy as possible during that standpoint, the research that I've seen is like, eat about 1,200 calories a day, eat a lot of like leafy greens, fish, some meat, but like it is very much kind of what I would consider like maybe vegetarian plus, right? Is it like, I don't know, I just invented that term, but like I think that's kind of what it is like eat a lot of like vegetables, salad type, you know, leafy greens, some fruits, and then supplement it with some meat on top of the salad or whatever, you know, shrimp, fish, all that stuff. But it's low calorie, and it is what I would consider like much lighter foods than it would be meats, et cetera. And so like going back to this idea of like, what are you optimizing for? Somebody who is optimizing for the longevity, how much of this has to do with like inflammation in the body and things that I'm assuming are associated with the lymphatic system? You see people like Tom Brady, who's like, I don't eat, I think, tomatoes. And you're like, well, that sounds weird. And he's like, no, it actually inflames the body. Is this all connected? And it's literally just like, what are you optimizing for?
Always.
Really?
Yeah, always. When you choose certain goals, right? Always choose the chemistry that aligns with that. Going back to that whole theory, like, okay, concentrate on calories, it's going to be better for you. Break it down a little more. Keep going. That's all I took. Keep going down to the science of it. Is if you kept digging like I've done for years, I always ask why? Why that? Why would you put that on top of that? Well, why would you cook the salmon that way and not this way? I think my first word out of my mouth as a child was why. And it got me down to straight chemistry and physics. And ultimately, what is it that you desire? If you desire to not have pain and you want to feel you're light, skinny, glowing skin, and that's all you ever want, then you're going to be on the fruits, berries, melons, and, some herbs.
And maybe no meat.
Not. Could you eat a piece?
Could you eat some?
Could you eat some and still be okay? Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's not if you eat this and you're going to die. It's over time that really makes the biggest difference.
It's like compounding, basically.
Compounding. Because again, chemistry is always going to has the time factor. And most of us get into the hypnotic rhythm of just eating the food that our family eats, our friends eat, right? Because we harmonize naturally as beings. So we're going to eat what our parents, friends, lover. And so this is why it's a big deal with your people around you. Sometimes it's harder to be a fruitarian in this world. Why? Because one, where the fuck are you gonna go? What are you gonna do for fun? You're gonna go travel and be like, I need an apple because that's all I can eat.
I'm literally laughing because as a kid growing up, we had cereal every morning. We ate peanut butter and jelly for lunch. And we grew up in an Italian household where we ate at like 8 p.m. Really heavy like pastas and various Italian dishes. Yeah. And like, it was awesome. Right. It tasted amazing. And then we'd have ice cream at the end.
Right.
Like, it was amazing.
Sounds like my house.
Yes.
Same thing. Like I said, I really battle because I'm not one of those purist individuals. Like I said, I love my mentor and I completely appreciate where he's coming from. I didn't come here to just be a fruitarian and sit on a mountaintop and
what is the difference
meditate.
between fruitarian and vegetarian? Is it just literally one eats fruit pretty much exclusively and the other eats vegetables with maybe some fruits?
So a fruitarian, and I went fruitarian for a year after being vegetarian, so no flesh whatsoever for 4 years. And then I went fruitarian because I do to myself prior to going out there and telling people, here's a great thing to do.
And is that what you eat now, is fruitarian?
I've gone back to fruitarian. So I've always gone back and forth. I mean, my career in tech took me all over this world and I've loved it because travel is my literal favorite thing to do. And it's tough to go over to these different countries and just ask for fruit. You're also doing your best to be with clients and such. So you kind of have to go outside that diet. So it was a little bit harder for me to hold on to that. I was a fruitarian when I visited Nepal, and going back to proper structure, posture of pooping. There's only holes in the ground, so you get really comfortable with that.
The Eastern world, they figured it out. They are the best poopers in the world.
But I'll tell you this, you wouldn't have to have a certain posture if you ate properly, because it just slides right out.
Interesting.
But when we get in the starches again with all, beans and rice. Talk about being in India with beans and rice all the time. Indian food's my favorite food on earth. So another reason why I can't just ever stick to that. But that's balance. Mm-hmm. When I was a fruitarian, you can get to the point, and I did, where I had so much energy, I didn't know what to do with it. I was working out twice a day. I could do 10 of these if I had, the time to do it. I had to bring myself a little bit down from that. And so I introduced salads, and salads would put me straight to sleep. So I built my digestion in such a way where all I was doing was I was energized all the time. And I looked the greatest. I felt the greatest. I had zero pain, zero inflammation. Going back to the inflammation factor of what ages you, right? Because it's just acids breaking down cells. But I realized also too, I don't necessarily want to live that way all the time. Sure, is it great? Yeah, but I also want to go explore and have fun. So I built myself away from that, salads, that went into, starches and stuff like that. I did eat meat. I tried it again for the first time in 5 years.
What happened?
That wasn't a fun couple days for me. Yeah. I got the blowback from it, but I'll say that I could tell the minute it went into my system, it was a different high. It, like I said, the steroids, the adrenaline. And I realized that, wow, most of us who eat meat, if you do, are living off that high. You're not actually craving the meat, you're craving the high from the adrenaline and the steroids, right? So
I have a confession. In 2016, for 5 months, I tried the vegetarian thing because it was more of like I wanted to like experiment and see what everyone was talking about. And it got kicked off because I went to India for 2 weeks at the end of 2015. And for those who haven't gone to India or there's a number of countries kind of in Southeast Asia that are very similar, is if you go into like a McDonald's, there's literally a veg and non-veg menu. right? So it's fully ingrained in society. A lot of it has to do with religion, cultural norms, history, all these different things. But like, it is very, very serious in terms of there's a vegetarian menu and a non-vegetarian menu. And so while I was there, like, I was like, that's interesting. Like, I wonder how they live every day. Like, I'll just not eat meat. Okay, fine. There's 3 takeaways that I had. The first, I lost like 30 pounds to the point where people would like see me and they'd be like, yo, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, are you like on drugs? Are you like something, do you have cancer? Like literally people were like worried about me. And I was like, no, like I'm fine. But I did lose 30 pounds. The second thing, and this sounds very weird, is I explained it to somebody as like, I felt like I was lighter, obviously because of the weight, but also the blood flowing through my body felt cleaner, which is like a very weird thing to describe to people. Some people are like, that sounds insane, but it just felt like I was kind of like cleaned out a little bit, which actually felt very good. But the third thing was it was very hard to operate. I would go out to eat and I just, for whatever reason, friends, family, my lifestyle, like all these things, it was just difficult. And so I broke it 5 months in. I basically was like, all right, this was a cool experiment, but like I'm done. And I had, I don't know if you know Bojangles.
Yeah.
I had it twice in about 24 hours. I didn't have a huge blowback, but I was like, man, I'm going to live my life and enjoy the shit out of this stuff. Yeah. Because it did taste 100x better than I remembered after not having meat for like 5 months. And so I took that as, is my body telling me, no, actually eat more of this because like you like it? Or is it more of like a sugar or a dessert and it's like, no, this just tastes good and like it's horrible for you.
Right. And
I just kind of didn't spend enough time to like really figure it out. But it was a fascinating experiment. It just wasn't something that was sustainable.
Right.
Right. And so then when I saw the longevity research, I also, there's a island, I think off of Greece. It's like the blue zone where people live the longest historically. Most people live to over the age of 100. And they pretty much eat Mediterranean diets. They drink wine and they get together every single night. And there's like a social component to it. And it's like those 3 things seem to be what leads to the longest life. Like Mediterranean diet is like pretty much fruits, vegetables, a little bit of meat, but more fish type stuff. And they seem to be doing all right.
It's because they have zero resistance around it. This is going back to where I say that there's chemistry and physics that we can look at clearly in the body. And I look at eyes. But ultimately, these cultures have zero resistance around that food. When they put it in their bodies, they're happy, they're balanced. It's a social component. It's love. It's not, I'm eating this because I want this outcome. I'm eating this because I should eat this, or I'm feeling guilty. They have no resistance. And that is, Betty White, I sometimes have my moments of mourning why I never got to get her eyes. This is a woman who lived, I think, chose to not live past 99. I mean, we know she could have kept going. She was gonna live for forever. This is a woman who would eat hot dogs and chase them with vodka.
I just had to Google who Betty White was. That sounds real dumb, but yeah, I had to, sorry.
I gotta go. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you.
I see she's an actress and a comedian.
Have you ever heard the Golden Girls?
The Golden Girls? Yeah, but I don't know who any of the actresses are.
Oh, come on, man.
There's 3 of them, right?
We're gonna have a talk. And we're Italian.
I don't watch fiction.
No, yeah.
I live in reality.
So, yeah, but Betty, I mean, this woman is just, why did she live this long? You know, if you ask someone.
So she was like the Warren Buffett of diets for.
Right. But why? She was the most positive, happy, loving, giving individual I think we've seen in Hollywood. One of the most. And we mourn her passing mainly because that's who she was. But if you go to a purist side of this whole detox thing and say, well, you know, she was eating hot dogs and chasing it with vodka, they'd be like, oh, you're gonna die. That's it. That's it for you. Good luck. You know, you're gonna feel like crap. But she didn't. She loved her life. She lived at 99, and I think she chose to be like, haha, joke's on you. I'm out. I'm gonna go be with my man. This is why it always comes down to, what is your relationship with that? And ultimately, if you come to me and saying, I'm having all these ailments and I want to feel better. Yes, of course, we understand you can go down the proper chemistry and physics way of cellular regenerative detox and cleanse the system and get all these systems back and going. But if you're not experiencing anything and you're still having a great time and you're enjoying your life like a Warren Buffett, God bless you. I'm never going to sit that man down and tell him, don't eat that.
Oh, I would do that if I saw him for sure. There's a whole nother thing of with Buffett. What's fascinating is, look, he's by far one of the best, if not the best investors of our lifetime. Yeah. At the same time, he has profited off of a lot of things that probably didn't do so hot for society, right? In terms of Coca-Cola, See's Candy, even some of the bank stuff. Yeah. So it's a weird thing where, like, I actually think he believes what he says because he eats McDonald's every day. He drinks Coca-Cola. Like, hey, it worked for him, right? But I do think that for many other people, it doesn't. So it's like kind of a catch-22. Mm-hmm. All right. So this detox thing, let's say that I go home today and I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this. And I'm only going to eat fruits, berries, melons, etc. What's going to happen to my body?
You'll just start, hopefully, depending, like I said, this is why I love the eyes. Let's take a look and see how well your systems are up and going. Ultimately, you're going to start craving, right? That's the other thing is most of our diets have a lot of sodium, savory. We like that. It's satiating. You're going to be hungry. But the great thing is give it a week or so and you're eating this and you're going to have your cognitive dissonance. Why the fuck am I doing this? What the hell? It's good. It tastes good. It's fruit. It's fresh. Juice it, eat it, whatever.
It's like a light fast almost.
Yeah.
Like you're fasting, but you get to cheat.
Which is so funny because if you consider that the fast when that's really just our biologically correct diet, but you're going to start craving for sure, right? If you just go let's say you go 30-day grapes, or let's just say you start on grapes.
30 days grapes only?
Who
does that?
So
is that a real thing?
So if I get someone who says I have, I don't obviously.
I love grapes, but I couldn't eat that shit for more than 2 days.
I don't say the copyrighted C word, but if I have someone that comes to me with a stage 3, 4, 5, I'm putting them on 30 days of grapes. And it works almost every single time.
What?
Almost 100% success.
Okay, so let's just say I spend 30 days only eating
just
grapes. What kind of grapes am I eating?
Just Red, Concord, preferably. The darker, the better. They're more aggressive. So Concord grapes, it'll kick your ass.
And what happens to your body if you just eat red grapes for 30 days?
So it will, focus just on that chemistry. So anytime you want the body to have rapid results, give it the simplest job to do. Give it fast burning energetics, right? Which is fruit, which is the most optimal for the body. It will start to focus on hydration, which you'll get from the fruit, but putting out the waste. So it'll kick up the kidneys, it'll electrify the nervous system, it'll get everything rocking and rolling, and then you'll start to dump that waste out. Every single time, no fail. It is one of the greatest ways to go and just rapidly, but it'll kick your ass.
Why do it for 30 days and not like 7 or 2?
You could, but I again, what's the intention? Right? If it's some of my clients who are coming in a really, really bad, they're in chronic states of just constant pain, or again, we're looking at stage 5, whatever, then they really want to rapidly get at this. And some of these individuals, if we're looking at a chronic state, their systems are down anyways. So the best thing to do is I could either fast them, we're talking like water fasting to pop their kidneys open so it'll start to filter and get the nervous system going. But I always say, at least, take some fruit to start cleansing because it's astringent, it'll start pulling at the mucoid plaque, get rid of the malabsorption. So I've seen people who've done 30 days of grapes. I've done 2 weeks, it kicked my butt, but I'm a fairly healthy individual, hasn't eaten a lot of the stuff. And I prep my body before it. But I see people who come out with, they've passed tumors, they've go back in for the test. They don't test positive anymore.
I'm lethal with the computer in front of me. And so my quick Googling sleuthing pulled up that maybe not a lot, but some doctors are studying the effect of taking grape extract.
Yes.
And what the impact would be on various cancers in the body.
Yeah.
What is the difference between I go to the grocery store and I buy grapes. Let's say that these red Concordia grapes sound super special.
Yeah.
And I just eat them versus this like grape extract, which I'm assuming is just like a really, really intense, component of the grape.
Sure.
What is the difference to my body?
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at our fruit today is pretty sad, unfortunately. I mean, we haven't given the land rest. The nutrients aren't as there. We rush the process, even organic, we're still rushing that process. The other thing is we're starting to get grapes without seeds. Why seedless grapes? Well, seeds are the most powerful part of the grape, if you think about it. Hopefully that's where they're getting the extract. But if I get with someone, I would hope to see if we could find seeded grapes. But they started to take those seeds out because they were so powerful, because people were detoxing, but they were saying it's poisonous.
So literally on Wikipedia, again, Wikipedia, take it or leave it as a source, says grape therapy or grape diet, also known as, ampolotherapy.
Yeah.
Is a diet that involves heavy consumption of grapes, including seeds and parts of the vine, including leaves, that is a form of alternative medicine. Then it says the concept was developed in the 19th century Germany in spas, 2 names I can't pronounce. And then it said, and this is an important part, the concept has no scientific basis and is regarded as quackery by scientific institutions like the American Cancer Society. I've never seen the word quackery before.
It's my favorite.
What do they mean that it is considered quackery by scientific institutions?
Like a snake oil salesman type thing?
Yeah, it basically says quackery is often synonymous with health fraud. It's the promotion of fraudulent or ignorant medical practices. A quack is a fraudulent or ignorant pretender to medical skill, or a person who pretends around credentials that do not actually work. Yeah. So what is the? Let's just say there's 2 schools of thought, right? There's one side, which is like the American Cancer Society, that's yelling, screaming like quackery, whatever that word means. And then there's this other side that's like, no, this actually is helping people. Like, where is the difference of understanding? Greed. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Hands down, every day. And unfortunately, I'm not just saying greed is the problem. It comes down to man's gotten too lost in his consciousness where there's just so much lack, right? There's a Hippocratic oath, do no harm. I have a really hard time when you swear to that oath and yet there's harm being done to people. I'm not saying that doctor is harming someone. There's just the theories that they go off of. I mean, you look at chemotherapy, it is 1.5 pH acid. You don't fight a fire with a fire. What caused those cells, or rather, we want to use the word cancer, but train not to use it just because it's owned a little bit. But if you look at the root of cancer, it's simply cells that have been chewed up by acids. Interstitial acidosis, it's just rampant throughout, and it's just location. So why would you go in an acidic state, which those cells are already chewed up by acid, and then go pour in even hotter acid? That, for common sense, doesn't compute. So for me, I sit back and say, I always got to follow the money. You're going to follow that money straight to the American Cancer Society, straight into chemo, and straight into the pockets of every single one of those individuals who are benefiting. And they could care less whether that person can walk or not, or get out of that room, or live past 3 months. You could call this stuff quackery, but I'll tell you what, it works. So that's the only thing is, I always say, what does it produce and what is the result?
So Steve Jobs is like the example I immediately jumped to mind,
Love
right?
it.
So he ate fruits and vegetables almost exclusively. And one of the things people may or may not know about Jobs is that he would actually go on like pretty lengthy fasts. And whether it's true or not, the way that the story is told is like, as a kid, he realized that by fasting, he could get to a euphoric state. And it was almost like a drug to him. So he basically would like do these fasts and try to get to this euphoric state. But I think the reason why the diet became so well known, other than just it's a peculiar thing for a guy who ended up building Apple, but when he got diagnosed with, I think it was pancreatic cancer, he basically took all the fruits out and was just like, I'm just gonna go like heavy vegetarian, or maybe he kept the fruits in or whatever. But like he just
you're right.
He like doubled and tripled down on it, and there was a bunch of people who were like, "This is a good idea." There's a bunch of people who were like, "It isn't a good idea." And my read on these situations is always like, there's no counterexample. Like you don't know if he had done something else, how long he would have lived or not lived or whatever. But like, how do you look at people like a Steve Jobs who's known around the world, and when they pursue this stuff, is that like a net positive? Is it a net negative? Like, how do you look at those types of situations for this view of the world?
Yeah, Steve Jobs is a great example. I always find it interesting how most people never even knew what that diet was prior to hearing, like a fruitarian. And so unfortunately, humanity will use our minds and say, well, the first ever exposure we have of this is a negative connotation because he ended up dying. Therefore, fruitarian equals bad, right? And I think the guy who even played Steve Jobs in the movie said that he went fruitarian and got pancreatic cancer, which made me laugh because fruits and berries and melons will never, ever produce cancerous, or rather, acids don't chew up those cells to then be called what's cancer. The issue is you can go on all fruits, berries, and melons and go be a vegetarian or a fruitarian. But if you look at Steve Jobs, just looking at him, the man was malabsorbed. He was not filtering. And so there's always going to come into the place where this is where iridology will fit. I don't care if you go any one direction, but get a look at where you are to start with. Are you strong enough to do this? We got to fix the systems that are down first. They didn't do that. He went on all fruitarian because I'm sure you read the books and that's great, but you got to get the systems working. If not, you'll have a blowback. If you aren't filtering through your kidneys, no matter what you put in your body, it won't work.
How do you change that? Like, let's say that somebody's not doing it. How do you make them filter through the kidney?
Usually it's through, like I said, going on working with someone like myself who understands those systems, and then using the right proper herbs and fruits, berries, and melons. You could do the 30 days of grapes or 30 days of watermelon and probably fix that malabsorption
People
issue.
do 30 days of watermelon too?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's
all right. What are the herbs?
Yeah.
You keep mentioning
Sure,
herbs.
so,
I know nothing about herbs other than street herbs.
So there's tons out there, right? I mean, you go into Whole Foods or whatever, and just this whole wall of herbs, and you don't know what the hell they are, which most people don't. And there's singles, there's synergistic ones. Most of that stuff is not crafted well, in my opinion. A lot of it's chemicals, and so I steer away from those type of things. I've tried a bunch. I've Nutrilite, Amway, Girl, growing up, Shackley. I've tried them all. And the only thing I know is I've moved away from all the ones that I can find pretty much in the store. And I use really, for the most part, my mentors. So Dr. Morse, he is a master herbologist. He knows how to bring these certain herbs that work with certain parts of the body. And that just comes from knowledge. And so and he blends them because, again, the body likes synergistic chemistry. It doesn't like elementals, so magnesium, copper, doesn't like those singles.
And when he blends them, like, is he giving it to you like in a tea bag, or is it like something you sprinkle on your food? Like, what is like the state of it?
So a few different ways, and it's great because you can do tincture, right? So that's whether you use glycerin or you can do alcohol-based, depending, like with certain religions, we can't do alcohol, so we'll do the glycerin base. Tinctures, and then you'll have capsule form, and then you can do tea form. But again, some of those herbs don't transfer into certain one of those modalities, and so sometimes they could just come in a tincture, they could just come in a capsule. But they're like targets, like missiles. So you can go on all fruit, and that's great, but it takes longer to really pinpoint those issues, and then you gotta obviously know if you're making progress or not. I always tell people, if you don't see cloudy urine, you're in trouble, because you want your urine to look like a snow. And I know, I can't wait to see some of the comments that I get from this. She's a whack job. She's going to kill people.
What is cloudy urine?
So I always tell
I know what urine is.
Always,
I know what
I'm
a cloud
glad, yeah,
is.
you know what a cloud is. So you know the snowball, when you shake it?
Yeah.
One of the best things you could see is your urine look just like that.
Interesting. So it's not like fully clear like it's water.
No, you don't want that.
And you don't want it to be brown.
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Dehydrated.
Yeah, we don't definitely want like, red or anything like that. It's
okay.
Red it's a detox symptom, but it's
fine.
It's temporary. Hopefully, you want cloudy. My clients pee in a mason jar, and I know it sounds whack job. Trust me. Like I said,
you do it at the doctor when they got to test your pee or whatever.
Yeah. Then you leave it there. You give it a second.
It's actually not as nice as a mason jar, but yeah.
I know. Well, so yeah. I mean, yeah. It's cool, but it's also weird because I tell my clients, just pee in a mason jar, set it up on the counter, give it a second. You want to see.
And leave it there?
just for
a
just so
minute.
it settles,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
But you want sediment. Because again, what does the body do? Every single cell eats and poops. But if you are not getting out that waste, where is it going? Storing in the tissues, right? That's acids. You need that stuff out. You need that waste out. It's mucus, it's proteins, it's that, it's just cellular trash that you need out of the system. So if you're not filtering, you're gonna blow back every single time. And that's what happened to Steve. They weren't focused because they didn't know. They didn't get it. They didn't understand the 4 systems of, digestion, absorption, utilization, elimination. If you don't have those 4 systems up, you're fucked. And it's sad. We lost a really good man, a genius, because you can't just take that all the way home. You can't just go 0 to 60. You got to know the whole picture. And that's part of why I love iridology the most. Like I nerd out on iridology so hard because that's the basis. That's the roadmap. Like, hey, you can go this way or this way. You can go allopathic, you can go natural. But if I get someone and I can see they're cellularly not strong, they're probably not going to get through a round of chemo. My grandpa didn't. That man ate like crap. He had 2 quadruple bypasses. That guy was supposed to die so long ago. They gave him 1 hit of chemo and he was gone. And it just shows you just got to check in and see where the state of that body is, where they are and what they can handle. And you can tell that through the eye. So I never tell people like, let's get the eye and then I'll basically tell you, go on your own journey. I'll tell you all day long, here's a natural way to do it. But if you're like, I'm a pharmaceutical person, God bless you. At least you have the knowledge of where you are as far as the systems are concerned.
So you have the iridology component where you take the picture of the eye.
Yep.
There's also this idea of like cell regeneration that you spend a lot of time on.
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
Sure. So obviously all the tissues in the body. So we're made up of cells and 2 fluids, blood, lymphatics, liquid, and then of course your cells. So everything else is just the tissues. And the tissues can regenerate. I mean, we've seen thyroids grow back after they've been radiated, but you got to do, of course, the right protocol to get that going. But it really comes down to giving the body what it needs in order to regenerate cells. When you look at an eye and you see a really dark patch or what looks like, we call them crypts or lacunas, and they're like these little closed up little circles or diamond shapes, and they're black. That tissue is pretty much in the deterioration, chronic deterioration phase, or almost gone, right? You can rebuild that, and we'll see that over time in the eye. You'll see the healing lines behind it, and those tissues start to regrow. But that's what we're talking about, is really taking those tissues that have been just eaten up by acids and the lymphatic congestion that just sits on that. You get the sulfur, you get drug deposits just eating away at that tissue, and that tissue is now compromised completely. We can start to see the regeneration of that tissue. You know, if you're removing part of the liver, we've seen those parts of the liver grow back. You just got to give it the right, chemistry and physics to work on. Yeah.
And so how much of this is like internal to the body to external? And I think about longevity as one piece. There's a lot of people who are obsessed with their diet for cosmetic reasons, right? They want to have less wrinkles. They want to look younger. They want different skin color. They want to change the clarity of the eyeball. Like there's all these things that happen. And then you start to layer in things like, there's a lot of science that's coming out and books around breathing and the ability to get oxygen into your body, and how if you breathe a certain way, mainly not through the mouth but through the nose, you can actually change the structure of your face. And like it just seems like there's like this spider web, and people are like going out and they're like, holy shit, like actually how we treat our body determines how we look. Is that all part of like the cell regeneration? It's just being done in different ways between diet, breath, exercise, sunlight, whatever.
Yeah, it's huge. It's all of it, right? I mean, again, there's no within without the out, and so forth, right? So everything you do inside is, I would say, more important if you're looking at physicality and looks, right? Because the skin is the 3rd kidney, so it's going to respond to everything you put inside it and the state of what's going on inside. Is there some merit to all the breathing? Absolutely, because again, you have to be able to move the lungs, make sure they're filled, make sure they're exercised, get out in nature, get out in the good energetics. So there's all these other factors that, like I said, you could just do the detox, or rather the diet and some of the herbs, but there's other factors as well. What you put on your skin matters. That's why we see all these products eventually move away from the chemicals and into the natural, because this is your third kidney. If this is your only way to filter out until you get your kidneys filtering, and you're just slamming this with chemicals, it's just going to break down that third kidney. Mm-hmm. So there's all these different aspects, and that's why the holistic approach is always better. It's not one thing that's going to solve all the problems in the world. Go out there, ground yourself, get in salt water, relax. If you're in a detox phase, don't go hit in the gym. Go relax, rest, make sure that your mind, fill yourself with good information. Go out there, laugh, have a great time. There's so much about, we're energetic beings, that we have to also feel that side of it. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, you can have these individuals that are just eating like crap, but their mentality is so great. And I say eating like crap in the sense of the detox side of it, but they're just doing so great. They're surrounded by great people, great music. They have no resistance, and ultimately they're disease free. Mm-hmm. And so, is that
the goal? Is to be disease free?
The goal is to enjoy life. It really is. I want nothing more than for someone to find joy, and then go give joy. I would love to. In my mission is to help everyone be happy, healthy, and filled with vitality, and then go give. Mm-hmm. As if we could create that cycle, we'd live the best lives ever. But our joy, it's really joy is our purpose. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to find joy when you're in constant pain. And that's where I tell people, my people usually find me. I don't have to go out there, advertise I've got all these amazing mentors who are like, we could blow this up, we're fucking billionaires. I'm like, yeah. But my people find me when they're ready. Mm-hmm. And that's usually where it is let's just educate. Let's tell people there is a way to be vitality filled and joyful and feel really good. And there's ways to do that. Just they'll I'll show up when you're ready, or mm-hmm. you'll find me when you're ready. But mm-hmm. that's the goal, is just to be happy. And that's, I think when we feel better, as far as physically, we're a lot more joyful. It's hard to be joyful when you're riddled in pain. But if you can find joy whilst in the state of pain, that's the ultimate.
Can you tell other things by taking a picture of the eye in terms of like somebody, if they work out or not, or like their mental health, things that I would associate with health, but may not be just simply like the classic like physical health?
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts about iridology. And it took, after years of studying this, I didn't realize some of the non-physical parts of this, but I find them to be extremely important. So I love that you bring this up. There's chakras, if you've ever heard of those, energy centers within the body.
No, what are those?
So there's, yogis or...
like vibes, like body vibes.
Yeah, exactly, kind of thing. You have like the throat chakra, and you've got the crown chakra.
And
those are wonderful energy centers that you can work with within the body, that once they're all, according to certain philosophies, once they're all spinning in the right direction, they're clear and they're wonderful, you just have this perfect alignment, right, within yourself.
I've always thought this is complete bullshit. And then I've talked to people who go... Yeah. And they swear by it.
Yeah.
And I think I've changed my mind on it, actually, which is it's kind of like people will say, that thing doesn't actually do what you say it does, right? So like the classic example is there's a movie, The Greatest Showman.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah.
That's the story of P.T. Barnum. And in it, there's a scene where there's a reporter who's been basically... He actually coins the term circus according to the movie. And he's basically writing all these hit pieces, all this stuff. And he says to P.T. Barnum, hey, don't you feel like you basically are tricking all these people? Everything you're saying here, that is not the fattest man in the world. That is not this. That is not that, whatever. And he goes, you are a salesman with basically delivering no value. And he says, do you see all the smiles? He goes, I'm delivering entertainment. And he goes, by the way, basically, I don't think anyone actually thinks that's the fattest man in the world, but they enjoy the entertainment. And he flips it and he says, but you are supposed to be a theater critic, but you can't enjoy theater. Like, who's the fraud here?
Yeah.
And it's weird because like definitely that's not the fattest man in the world. Like objectively, like that is a quote unquote lie, right? Yeah. And P.T. Barnum is who he is, and create the circus, and like all this stuff. But if you look at it through the entertainment lens, it's like, okay, cool. Like there's value because people are smiling and laughing, having a good time, whatever. If you look at it from like a scientific standpoint or a factual standpoint, like that is not a woman with a mermaid tail, right? Right. That is a costume. And so when I think about a lot of these people who have gone to, whether it's the yogi stuff or others, I always wonder how much of it is like what they are claiming is the value, right? So your body is in full alignment or whatever. Or like, no, actually that person feels much better because they went somewhere without their phone for like a weekend and they came back and they're a happier person. And in some way, like they obtained a closer state to what they were trying to obtain, regardless of whether it was like some weird pose that they held for 30 minutes or like they just got away from their friends, family, and phone and like they're in a better mental state. Like it's this weird thing, right? Yeah. Where like, how are you evaluating it? And I don't have the answers. Like that's another key part of it is it kind of is just like, hey, does that person think it's valuable? Then like, I guess they think it's valuable. Like who am I to judge them, right?
Right. No, I think that's the best point. And it's taken me a little bit to get there. So I studied pranic healing or prana, right? Life.
What is that?
Pranic healing, have you ever heard of Reiki? Reiki is just the transfer of healing energy, according to if this is something one subscribes to or not. Reiki healing is usually laying on the hands. Some don't. They don't touch the person. But they transfer healing energy from hands to certain parts of the body. And usually chakras are one of those targets. Because
that sounds like magic.
It's right. It's fantastic. So I was like, oh,
like some Power Ranger shit.
This is amazing, right? This is like when I was a kid, I was like some Harry Potter shit. And I'm a big fan of Harry Potter, so I'm going to go try this out. So I actually studied with Master Ko, who now you might see him with Tony Robbins. So he is an amazing, I would say, philosopher, healer, mind, heart. He just really is a great spiritual leader. I went to go and studied pranic healing underneath him in San Diego when I lived in Southern California.
What was that like?
San Diego or
No, studying.
Healing? It was great. I wanted to understand how much, to your point, is it what I'm doing or is it the receiving, right? And how much credit and merit does this stuff really have? Now, I'm an individual who grew up in, I would say, a religious household. I don't subscribe to any religion, but the fact that I was taught to believe in something I couldn't see, like the wind. You can't fucking see the wind, but we sure do see the effects of it, right? And so I wanted to understand that. So I went, studied with him, and I would work on people. I would do exactly as Master Ko said, and I could feel that I was doing something, but how much of that was reality and how much was it just what I was believing? And and that person on the other side, as I was working on them, would just burst out in tears. And I would just be moving my hands. Like if you were just watching as a fly on the wall, you'd be like, these people are a bunch of whack jobs, right? You got this person on their floor crying and this person's waving their hand over them and moving energy. If we were to look at something from an ethereal realm, right, we would probably see that energy moving. But how much was it this person? How much was it me? And I sit back and say, one, I don't have the answers. Two, it was a really fucking cool experience. And I've helped a lot of people. I'd like to believe I was just a channel to help those people. But ultimately, that person needed to be in alignment with it. They needed to be able to receive it, just like anything in life. If you are in the receptive mode, then you're good with it. Who are we to say that it didn't work? Who are we to say that person doesn't actually have great results from it? If they were in alignment with him, who are we to tell them that they're not? The smiles, right? What do they call the placebo pills or sugar pills? That person believed it was helping them. So was it the belief that was more powerful, or is it the medication? I
always think of psychologists as well. Like therapy has become very popular. This whole idea of I've seen a bunch of books when I go to bookstores around like trauma and like all these things that now have kind of come to the forefront. And if you really think about a lot of therapy, not all of it, but a lot of it is like you go to a room and someone asks you questions and you just talk. right? Like, and again,
Right.
like we're doing it right now.
Doing it right now.
We do it all day long. We talk to people, like
Yeah.
whatever. But it has this like very profound effect. And maybe it's because of the topic you're talking about. Maybe the person asks you really, really probing questions, or somehow you feel like you should be honest with them, or whatever all the things that people claim make it work. But it is like a very weird thing, because you could send two people to the same therapist, ask the same questions, and one person walks out and is like, that was amazing. And the other person be like, that person is full of shit. Right. And I think it's like a weird issue, because it's very polarizing as well. The person who goes and it feels like it was effective, they'll defend it basically to the death. Yeah. They'll be like, what are you talking about? That's not bullshit. Like, look what they did. They made my life amazing. And this other person is like, no, literally, I went and saw the same person. Like, they're an idiot, right? Like, they wasted an hour of my time, and like, they should give me a refund. And I wonder how much of it is just like a fit. This person actually can benefit from therapy, sit, talk, whatever, to in the military, there's a couple of guys who started to popularize this idea of like a 20-minute walk. And it's for like a mental health thing. Yeah. And like, it could be therapeutic to just go for a walk for 20 minutes, right? And so when you see those two things, you're like, well, maybe they're actually getting at the same end result, which is this therapeutic, kind of solution. Some people need to talk, some people need to walk. Who are you, right?
Right. I mean, it comes down to believing is seen as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah.
Ultimately, not one thing is going to work for everybody. That's what I love about this world, is that we can find so many different modalities, and people dive into them and they just love them and they swear by them, and that's fantastic. But that's not to say that's the only way. This other way that speaks more into this person's listening is going to be it. Who are we to say what is truth and what's not? It's that person and what they're benefiting from it. Now, there's going to be obviously the other side of things that we believe that, okay, that hurting people is no bueno. Don't do that. I don't see how you can get really any benefit from that. So there's some certain lines that I draw and say, I can sit right here and say, that's not a good thing, right? Huge against, sex trafficking and human trafficking and stuff like that. So I can sit there and be like, nope, don't like it. There's not a single thing you could do to convince me that this is good. But there are people out there who find it beneficial and who find it good. It's very tough. And I think that ultimately you have to go with what works for you. And if you're starting to bash other people, then you're getting out of that alignment.
So it's basically like almost kind of like a free speech thing, right? Where it's like most people, I think the line that they draw is like, our country's built on free speech, but there are certain things that you cannot do, like incite violence in certain situations, yell fire in a theater, right? There's like some very specific things that courts of law have determined, hey, this is out of bounds. And your thought process, I'll paraphrase and correct me if I'm wrong, is like people should be allowed to do what they want to do and what they find happiness in, within the bounds of like the legal system or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're not going to really get anywhere if you're constantly breaking the law. And there are people who have. Again, how is it that they actually got there by breaking the law? And it comes down to that person's, ultimately, I can't tell you what that person's karma is, what it took them to get here. And I can't certainly judge it. It is not my place. So I always tell people, approach everything with compassion. You do not know how this person, every single client that comes to me, I don't know how they got here. I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, you do realize that you manifested your own reality and you've basically made your own hell. It's the last fucking thing they wanna hear. It's not gonna help them. There's no way I'm gonna say that. I will, however, approach every single conversation with compassion, because I have zero clue where your alignment is and where your karma is and what it is that you want for your life. Truly, no one can guess what that is for someone. And when we try, I don't think it results in anything that great.
Do you know who Cain Velasquez is?
Gosh, that sounds familiar now.
If I said to you, I saw an individual shoot and try to kill someone, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Depends on the situation.
Okay. Most people would say it's a bad thing. Right. Cain Velasquez was arrested for attempted murder, 10 gun charges. And I want to make sure I don't get this wrong, but he basically chased down a man, this guy, Harry Gurate, in a vehicle and shot at him, tried to kill him. And the reason was because this man is accused of, has been arrested and charged with sexually assaulting a young relative of Cain Velasquez. Now, without that context, chasing someone down in a vehicle and shooting at them and trying to kill them, most people say is bad. When Cain Velasquez was arrested, the internet erupted and said, free him. Yeah. And it was this fascinating thing. He's out on bail now, right? And so it's going through the legal system. But you have this like court of public opinion, which is very biased because it is the court of public opinion. Correct. And there's tons of fight fans and all this stuff, right? So he was a well-known person who basically said, I understand the boundaries of law, but the context in which this guy was retaliating is actually okay in my ethical view. On the flip side, there's a lot of other people who were like, nope, doesn't matter what the situation was. Like you shouldn't Black and white. Try to gun people down in the streets.
Yeah.
But it did introduce a lot of complexity, a lot of context, a lot of ethics, a lot of compassion versus not, who should be the arbiter of truth, who should be the arbiter of punishment. Like it brought in all these weird things. And it was fascinating to watch because it was playing out online because it was somebody that people knew, right? And I always think of that example specifically because it's an extreme example. And it probably touches on two extreme things: sexual assault of a young person and then trying to murder them, right? What would the response have been if he just went to a bar and just beat him up?
Right.
I don't even know if he gets arrested, frankly, right? Like I think that there could be cops who literally show up and say, what happened? Oh, have a good day, right? Attempted murder is a different story. Also, if that individual had simply robbed a young relative, maybe the reaction is different than obviously sexual assault being such a emotion-packed, like just most people look at it as like a complete violation of the ethical framework that they have. And so I don't know what the answers to these things are, but as you unpack them, there's this complexity that ends up making things not black and white that is completely lost on the internet. Like it was very much like you were either on Cain Velasquez's side or not. And that was it.
I think that unfortunately, we get in too much of the mind. We get into our opinions, we get into our ego. I'll go way further than that. It took me a while, and through the different mentors and different spiritual I've studied my whole life to find the truth. That is my goal, is to uncover the truth about everything as much as possible. It's a maddening journey at times because I learn a lot of things that I never wanted to know. But ultimately, I can see beyond it. I can see that it's just the journey. I truly, when I look at these type of things, I love First 48. I watch that shit all day long. And I grew up in a household, you weren't allowed to watch that because protect yourself from that stuff. But I was always really fascinated. And I got to this point where I realized everyone has choice and freedom. It's what we came to this physical form. We wanted to experience this whole physical game and this journey. But there's a level that we don't see. And it's that soul connection level. It's that soul agreement. It's these two individuals somehow agreed they were going to teach each other this lesson. This is just the philosophy that I finally boiled it down to. And it's helped me a lot to look at things without any bias. It's, yes, of course, murdering someone may not be the highest choice. I am one to encourage high choices. Why? Because you're just collecting karma all throughout your lifetime. And you're probably undoing some karma from a prior lifetime, depending on what you subscribe to as far as a belief system. But you come into this world and every single thing you do has a ripple effect. It's what you make that choice to collect karma in a cause and effect way. It's not good or bad, but you're always collecting. And I think that every single time I see these type of instances, those two individuals came into each other's lives to teach each other a lesson. You look at that mom, they had I can't remember, her daughter was molested and murdered by the man she was married to. And it was either the man she was married to or it was just someone. And she went into the courtroom as he was being sentenced, pulled out a gun and shot him to death. And of course, she was arrested and everything. And she was like, I'm good. I made my choice. I know what that consequence is. And that's all life is the freedom of choice and the consequences that go with that. And ultimately, can I sit there and say he was wrong? No, because it was right for him. Did he now collect karma, take someone else? Now, did he fight fire with fire? I'm not the biggest fan of that, but who am I to sit here and tell him that that wasn't good for him? He probably feels a shit ton of relief. Well, so does she. You know, she felt she was doing right by her daughter by getting even. You'll find different religions who sit there and talk about that as bad and good and bad and good. And ultimately, no one of us has a single fucking clue if that person's ending up in hell or not. That's all what they're experiencing here. And that's ultimately their individual journey and whatever soul agreement they had with that person at that time. So that's kind of where I come in. And it's not a popular belief because no one wants to hear everyone's just is choosing their own journey and creating their own path and their soul connection. They decided to help each other at a different realm, yada, yada. They want, throw the motherfucker in jail or, you know, just move along and forget that that person did that to your sister.
Do you want to know one of the most famous people in the world right now who has admitted to killing people? It's Prince Harry.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book. I refuse to read the book. But I saw the headlines. And I saw the snippet, and he basically said that he was a helicopter pilot, and he estimates that he killed 25 people.
Yeah.
This is a prince, whether, I don't know exactly how it works, but like I think he's on the outs, but he's still a prince or whatever.
I think you're prince by blood, right?
Yeah.
Can I kick you out of that?
I don't know. Somehow I'm going to still keep calling him Prince Harry because that's what I think his name's supposed to be.
Get kicked out of the royal family for blood?
Maybe the royals will come for me. But it's fascinating because all of a sudden it was kind of like the context was war. Oh, he's Prince Harry. Oh, it was in a helicopter. He didn't look them in the eyes and, you know, with a pistol and shoot them. Like there's all these aspects to it. And like, yeah, people were like, you probably shouldn't talk about that. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who kind of just like glossed over like, oh yeah, he said he killed some people. And it's just fascinating to kind of see because I don't know what the right answer is, right? I don't know if you had said to me before there was a public reaction to it, you could see a world where it's like, wow, one of our countrymen went and he defended our country. There's another, I was like, wow, you went and how do you know those people weren't innocent people and everything in between? Yeah. So it's just a weird thing. I don't know.
It is. And I was raised by a family who everything was wrong and we're right. Right. Unfortunately, as a young child growing up, I always bucked that. I was like, well, why? Again, why? Why is that person wrong, but this person's okay? Why is this person in the Bible who murdered, they were great, but this person today who's murdering is not? It never made sense to me. And it was, like I said, common sense. Make it make sense. And it was always, well, we don't have all the answers, but we're right. And I just never could get on that system.
Hero of your own journey.
Hero of your own journey. And so, you know, I grew up and I had a lot of judgmental. I mean, we were having this conversation 3-4 years ago. I would not be at this consciousness level that I am now. I would have been probably more on the judgmental side. Like, no, don't ever fucking eat a piece of meat again unless you want to be, just very hardcore. I'm right. A lot of ego. And that's what we see in this world today is a ton of ego driving all of these responses, all of these beliefs. And
how did you get rid of your ego?
Get your ass kicked enough times and hand it to you. Have enough failed relationships. It took me, what really kicked me in the ass is breaking my engagement with my fiance.
Wow.
And being able to look at that and say, I'm only going to focus on what I did, on what did I bring to the table? What did I not do? What was I reaching for? What was the separation on my part? Basically, I just went and had a great conversation with the mirror every day. Mm-hmm. Not a single thing was their fault.
So you were engaged to somebody and you called off the engagement between engagement and wedding.
Yeah.
And did you just like wake up one day and you're like,
no. Mind you, we'd been in and out for 2.5 years.
Okay.
So.
And how long were you engaged for?
2 weeks? No, a month.
Oh, okay. So like you had been engaged for a year and a half.
No, and it was very quick. It was, but again, we had already had our struggles. Mm-hmm. Easy to say, not beat around the bush, drop the bomb. So I've never dated a man in my life. Mm-hmm. I've been only historically dated women. And so my fiance, she and I had gone back and forth.
Oh, it was a woman?
Yes. So we'll drop
more interesting.
More bombs.
Okay.
So she and I had been on in and out and just learning our lessons. Again, this is how the soul kind of contracts and agreements. I started to learn more about this as we went through our journeys. I watched as every single time we do this breakup and back again and breakup and back again, we learned more and more lessons. And it frustrated us more, but it also, at the end, gave us more compassion for one another. And we realized just our paths were going two different ways.
What was causing the breakups? And then what was bringing you back together?
Always childhood issues.
Interesting.
Always. You know.
Like what?
Usually our parents always came down to it. Our moms specifically came down to it.
Like
It was
your
always
moms were getting involved in the situation?
No, it's just how we were raised.
Got it.
You know, my mom, you know, and again, this is me. I can't even judge her anymore because she's choosing her own journey. It just didn't align with mine. We've never gotten along. We've always butt heads. I'm a very strong individual. So is she. Her, you know, my fiance's mom, who had dealt with alcoholism as Melissa's, very young age. And so there was all of this stuff from our childhoods and mainly how we were raised and our issues with our moms that caused us to come together and almost help fix those issues and release those things, because I truly believe that we'll attract any person into our existence that will help us become the better version of ourselves. I really truly think that's the only reason we get into relationship. They're just perfect mirrors. And ultimately, I realized, well, I'm continuing to go down this path of being the same person and not shifting. We keep doing this in and out thing. And I'm just blaming you and you're blaming me. And
Why did you guys keep coming back together?
I hadn't learned the lesson yet. Like the micro lessons we kept getting and kept getting closer and kept getting closer. And it was fascinating to me to watch us finally break. And how I knew we learned the lesson is when we separated, because we got engaged again.
Oh, wait, hold on. So you got engaged.
We got engaged
broke it
again.
off, and then you got engaged again.
And I broke it off again.
So twice.
Twice.
How long between the first engagement and the second breaking it off?
5 months.
5 months. Okay.
So we separated for 5 months.
Yep.
Dated other people. And then got back together. Now
How does that work? Like you just like you up text, or like
you write a lot of humbling emails and basically you own your shit.
Okay.
And I owned all my shit.
Got it. Okay.
As I came in, not a single thing did I blame her for. And that's what I'm saying is the best way to get rid of the ego is just take inventory and responsibility for every single thing that you bring in your life, because that's really all you're doing. You're in relationship with yourself. Anytime you get into a relationship with another person, you're just really looking to be a better individual. And so every time we come together, we'd separate, but the anger and all this blame and I'm gonna do this and that's it. We gotta sell the condo, we're selling it, blah, blah, blah. How I knew we learned the lesson and we could really finally allow ourselves to move forward is when we sat there, we separated, and we could still show up and support and love, and we're best friends.
Really?
That woman I will have her back forever because she's a good person. Has it been painful as a relationship? Absolutely.
Will she always have your back?
Yes, she will.
So?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we knew we learned that lesson. So we no longer feel like, oh, we need to be in relation. Like I need to have you because it's this, cool. Like, hopefully I'll be at your wedding. You'll be at mine.
Yeah.
This will be great.
Can I ask a really weird question? Sure. And this comes from a complete place of ignorance, so I'm looking to learn. When two women are in a relationship with each other and there's an engagement, is there a prior conversation as to who is going to propose to who? Because the societal norm when it's a man and a woman, like if my wife proposed to me, a lot of people have been like, that's abnormal. That's like non-traditional, right? Yeah. And again, I use the word non-traditional because it's a tradition, right? I don't know if there's necessarily a reason why. But how does it work in a relationship where there's two women? Is there a conversation or how does that work?
I think there was a conversation.
Okay.
She had been married before.
Okay.
She had, obviously has her ex-wife and she'd been married before. I had never been married. I'd never been engaged. And so for me, I think there was this automatic, since I've never done that and you've already been married, like maybe I should ask.
Interesting.
Maybe I should be the one to do that because I don't know how you'd feel. You've already been down this road. It's brand new. So there was this, and frankly, it just came down to she gave in and did it, right? So we were both kind of in this like, who does it? So it is a little interesting. I
kind of almost wonder if it's like, meet at high noon and like draw who gets the ring out first.
It's almost like if you're lucky, you'll find someone who wants to do that. There's always usually one person that's scared to fucking death and they're not doing it. And it's interesting because I always find that people say, well, it must be easier to be with a woman. I'm like, absolutely not.
Is it harder?
For me, I would say yes. But again, I've never dated a man.
Okay. Why do you think it's harder?
You're built very similarly. Mm-hmm. You are wired very similarly. I bucked this for a long time. Like I said, I've never dated a guy. You could say I was born gay, but now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, that was fun. That was awesome. Now we're open to guys, right? It's just like sudden shift. Yeah. But
okay, hold on. Wait, I got a lot of questions.
Yeah. Can't believe we're actually talking about this in this podcast.
The idea of being born gay.
Yeah.
How do you think about that? Because I have friends, I'm like very fortunate. I actually think this is probably one of the greatest assets maybe that I have or like great fortunes in life is I have people from literally every walk of life. I know people who were horrendous, horrible criminals to like the next Mother Teresa, literally everywhere in between. I know people as American as they come. I know people who are couldn't care less about America and like they love their country, like whatever. Yeah. And then across religions, across sexual orientation, like all these different things. Yeah. And it's fascinating to kind of see all this stuff. Born gay is probably actually one of the things that if I polled all of them, they don't have opinions about.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's not something that is part of like their personal experience. So like, how do you think about that?
Hey guys, I hope that you're enjoying this conversation. As you probably realize, we don't run any ads on this show. That's right. All the other podcasts, all the other YouTube shows that you watch, they have advertisers. We don't have any direct relationships with advertisers, and we simply create this because we enjoy doing it. Now that we do that though, we have a team. And if you'd like to support us, one way you can do that is to go subscribe to the Pomp letter. It's a daily letter that I write to about 235,000 people about my personal opinion on financial markets, business, technology, and Bitcoin. Just go to pompletter.com and you can sign up there. I'd love to have you join us, and it's a great, easy way to support the work that the team and I are doing on a daily basis. All right, let's get back into this conversation.
So I'm probably less hardcore than a lot of the, I'd say, gay community is. I never fought really hard about that, but I had a very different experience with my time of, prescribing as being gay, right? There are individuals, and I would have said, I would never, and I'd go to my grave without ever dating a man because it didn't click before.
Because you weren't attracted to them?
Yeah, it's just, I love men. I mean, they're all over my life and business and family, and I've never had a bad relationship with one. There was no reason why, right, air quotes, why I didn't date men, except it just didn't register. I just automatically pictured women in that way. And so people would say, well, you were born gay. Okay, but how much of that is a choice? And I fought for a long time with the fact that I was like, okay, I'll go out dancing. I'll dance with a guy. And nothing was going on. Nothing was happening. He wished there was, but I was like, I'm really sorry about this. Like, nothing's going on.
Would you tell them?
Oh, very upfront.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm like,
you weren't like an Irish exit. You were more of like, hey, sorry, this isn't my thing.
There's literally nothing happening, and I don't mean to kill your ego with that, but like, you're a good-looking dude, but there's literally nothing computing, and this poor guys.
What was their reactions? All over the place?
Shocked. They couldn't believe it. And I'm like, you can't take this personal. Like, seriously, don't take this personal. Because they're some of the most gorgeous individuals. I'm just like, you're amazing, but it's just not computing. It's not for me. And I really, really struggled with that whole saying that I could actually be open to something because my spiritual side was struggling. Like, well, why does the physical matter? Aren't you connected to the soul? Aren't you? But at that time, I was learning all my lessons through women. only, which makes sense. Like I said, you boil it down to, mommy issues and yada, yada, yada. And I'm not saying I didn't love these women for who they were without any issues. I probably still, without any issues, would have been with them. There are too many opinions about the gay community that I feel we're never going to agree. The gay community is divided. I hate labels, so straight community is divided. Everyone's going to have their opinions.
But that's true of every community, right?
It's true of every community.
Okay.
Let them fucking do what they're going to do. Yeah. Because I sit here today, and it's extremely humbling to sit here and say, I would have said I was born gay and I would never date men, but here I am, first time ever, open to dating men. And it's really, really perplexing because—
What do you think changed? Or do you even consider it a change? Or is
I
it
think
just—
ego, going back to that ego conversation, has a lot to do with it. Ego, its main purpose is to protect you. And I had no reason to protect myself from those relationships. But I think women were probably the only way I could actually break that. Because you can really just flesh things out with women. Like they'll go to town with an issue.
Can I ask a
like,
really dumb question? I have a lot of friends who are in a straight relationship, and I understand how they argue because it's the way that my wife and I argue.
Yes.
In your relationship, especially one where you're together, you're not together, you're together again, how did arguments go down?
Same way.
Same exact
There's
way.
no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not too many
You're petty,
differences.
you're
you're
the whole
petty.
thing, yeah.
You're a jackass.
You're
You
wrong.
slam the door.
Yes.
You're wrong. You're right. Yeah, it's the same shit. I mean, there's really no difference.
I don't do any of that, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad. And you're Italian.
Just make sure that you tell my wife I'm perfect.
I can't say I was. I mean, there were some women that drove me to Hulk status, and I'll tell you what, I'm tiny thing, but I know crazy. There's really no difference when it comes to the women, and that's kind of the things I started to realize. Like, wow, as I'm seeing this, it's less about the form, it's more about the person. It's where do I want to learn my lessons? Do I want to learn it with a female? Do I want to learn it with a man? Doesn't matter. You're going to do the same thing. Ultimately, every person is going to have emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and you're never going to agree on one thing. I was given some of the best advice. It's like, there's always going to be 5 or 10 non-negotiables in your relationship. And those are things, no matter what you do, you'll never see eye to eye on, and you'll never agree upon. Be okay with those things. And some people can last through that, and some people are like, no. Going back to the diet. You have so many people who are vegetarians who will never date a meat eater. And I'm like, why? Why not? I'll cook you bacon right now. If that's what's in alignment with you, I'll fucking put it on the grill. Because it's not mine. And why does my decision affect you? But that takes a while. And so the arguments are the same. It's money, sex, friends, job. It's the same shit. It's no different at all.
It is, it's this fascinating idea though, that you now are open to dating men.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a biological thing, a psychological thing? Because I'm assuming, and again, I want to be very careful I don't make too many assumptions here, because I literally have no knowledge whatsoever, and you're giving me an education. That people in the gay community, are you an outcast now?
I've always been an outcast.
Okay. You've always been an outcast.
I've always been an outcast in the gay community.
How is it viewed in terms of somebody who dated women their entire life, and now you're like, no, actually, I'm open to dating men?
So I guess we'll find out.
Okay.
Because this is
the first time you're saying it.
This is one of the first times I'm saying it. So
amazing.
To everybody out there, my ex is going to be thrilled.
Oh, she doesn't know.
Oh, no, she knows.
Okay.
We've had that conversation because I would hate for her to find out via a podcast.
Yeah.
No, so.
Don't worry, just the rest of the world, though.
She's my best friend. This would be like, hey, mom, she'll be happy about it, though.
What about her? Is she open to dating men now? Or no? Or you don't know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even think I asked that question because this comes down to here's my experience, and whatever you offer to me is a gift. And so I think that she's a very conscious individual. I mean, she's elevated. She's through me and through our relationship, she's a totally different person. And in a great way.
Is she a fruitarian as well?
No.
Got it.
She actually helped me not be a fruitarian for a little bit. That's
Got
okay.
it.
Yeah. No, but we had a blast. Traveled all over the place, drank, ate, fantastic. Now she's leaning towards more, so we're making her juices. And,
got it.
Again, balance.
All right, now let's get down to the serious details.
Yeah.
If you were previously attracted to women and now you're open to dating men, is that I'm open to men and women, or just I'm open to dating men?
I think
these are things I have no clue how this works.
These are great questions. I will say I'm not going to limit myself.
Okay.
I'm also not very focused on it. This is another great thing is through my relationships and learning these lessons, I now feel more comfortable in my own skin and not needing anyone. Before I needed someone. I always needed the relationship. I needed that companionship. Not that I couldn't be alone and happy. I thrive alone. But there was always this, I need this relationship. And I really think it comes down to that. I'm not done learning my lesson. I'm not conscious of what that lesson is, but for some reason, I just need that relationship and I need some of that iron sharpens iron type of thing and contrast to continue to get more clarity. And now I'm just clear. And so it's not a focus. It's not like I put myself out there. I didn't be like, okay, go on the dating sites. I'm now open to men. It's not like that. It's just simply getting to that awareness where I'm so on purpose with everything else that if someone comes in and they add to my life, fantastic. We do this journey together and have a blast. Cool.
All right. My last question is, have you gone on dates with men yet?
I have not.
No? All right. We're going to do this again at some point in the future. And I want to hear about the different experience of going on a date with a woman versus with a man.
Oh boy.
Like, I've never gone on a date with a man.
Okay.
I've gone on a date with only one woman, my wife. She's going to murder me.
I'm going to interview her next.
And so like, because you have or will have had both experiences, like it'd be fascinating to understand like what are the similarities, but also what are the differences.
Yeah.
And how much of a date, I'll put that in air quotes, as to like a traditional two people going out that are potentially romantically interested in each other, is a shared experience of like going on the date together versus like there are differences between two women, two men, and then a man and a woman. It's like a fascinating.
It'll be fascinating. I think there's a lot to your point. I mean, eat, pray, love, right? She was married. She didn't want to be married
multiple stories
anymore.
like this.
And then she goes to women.
Yeah.
There's not too many that have been only women and are going to men.
Really?
So this will be fascinating.
Do you know of anyone who's like a public figure or well known that's done that?
I do not. This is brand new territory, clarity, and it's fascinating. I love it for a lot of different reasons, mainly because I think I held to that I'm gay and this is it, and I'm only gonna, pick from a pool of 10%, a very tiny, tiny pool to choose from. I really was holding tight to that, and I held a lot of ego, and being an outcast in the gay community, why
were you an outcast?
So I didn't fit the mold when I'd walk into some of the clubs and the bars and stuff, and like, hey, so you're really a straight girl, you look straight, and you're only wanting really good-looking women. You don't want a butchy type gal, so you're straight. You have to be straight. And it was always a constant issue with me. And I was like, and I didn't want to go to the prides because I'm not a big partier. I enjoyed different activities. And I also, again, the question why would come out. Why are we having prides? Why is there such this need to have a huge event? And I always looked at these events with, I would say a judgmental eye back then. Is okay, well, if this is about being gay, then why aren't we sitting with people and learning their stories? Why do we've got strippers and sex toys and everything? There was always this weird thing for me I couldn't quite grasp and subscribe to. And then it got to, well, sure, okay, gay community, but then I'm also very much a conservative in my political beliefs and so forth. And so there's just one after the other as to why I didn't fit into the community. And now you look at everything that's happening in politics with, the gay community and transgender and non-binary and all this stuff about the drag queens. And frankly, there's this part of me that just sits back and goes, everything has shifted slightly. It's no longer Stonewall. This is now a totally different conversation. This is now totally different scenarios that we're talking about the LGBTQ community. And I have no judgment whatsoever. Again, go out there, do your thing, do no harm, obviously, right? But it's different for me to sit back and say that my life would change that much, because most of my friends are straight. Most of the people I've worked with in my career and whatnot are straight, if we're using the labels. And but I have a feeling that there's going to be some sort of blowback from this. And this is part of why I haven't put it out there. I kind of keep some of my personal life pretty private, but I'm sure that people are out there going, well, that's fucking stupid. So what, now you're just not gay? Well, why are we also holding to labels? Why aren't we given freedom and choice? And that's ultimately my biggest thing is have freedom and choice. And some people, not a choice. Totally understand that. I would have said the same thing.
You mentioned the Pride Parade, and I remember reading it, I just looked it up. Back in 2019, there was this article, and I remember being kind of surprised as to some of the critiques of the Pride Parade, right? I lived in San Francisco at one point. Yeah. It's a huge event there. New York City, obviously, same thing. Many other cities around the United States. And the article is titled Clash of Values, Why a Boycott is Brewing Over the Pride Parade. And the main point was that it had been overrun by corporate sponsors. And that there was also critiques of like the politicalization of the Pride Parade. Yeah. And it's a fascinating thing because that's a story across every industry, across all these things. It's like, the corporates got involved, right? There was like the greed, the government, the capitalism got their like hands into this thing. Yeah. And it always just struck me as like, I would have never thought that the Pride Parade, like that would have been a thing. But then when I started to understand it, I was like, maybe this is like a societal thing. Like it's happening in so many different areas that just like we're seeing pushback in other areas, a loss of trust in institutions and things like that. Yeah. People are saying, hey, we actually don't want the corporate, kind of hand in the cookie jar, if you will. And we just want to have it stand for what it stands for. But like, I don't know if there's like a right answer there.
Yeah. And it's actually, it's confused me a little bit of watching over the years. And I've been to San Francisco, I've been to New York. So I've been to them, but it was always in this, like, I'm going because I feel like I had to. I was younger, right? And I'd lived in all these different cities and tried it out. And so eventually, the friends or the person I was dating, we'd go, but I was always like, I'm just gonna watch and see how this evolves. And I worked for companies who, I was a flight attendant for a year, took a break from technology sales, went in, and Alaska Airlines, very pride forward. So anytime the Pride Parade came along, they had a whole flow, they got dancers, they got all this stuff. Everyone's wearing the rainbow, part of the uniform during the Pride season, I guess they call it. I worked for Amazon on their technology side. Internally, huge. I mean, you could have your badge with rainbows, and there's just a big presence. Facebook, same way, all these big companies. And for me, I start to look at some of these celebrations as like Burning Man. Back in the day, Burning Man was a fuck the man celebration. And now I can't say it's lost its original thing, but you can see if you've ever gone or you've talked to the people, it's definitely changed from what its intention was to what it is now. Now it's this, you got famous people going in there, and there's lots of drugs.
Fly your private jet, basically.
Fly your private jet and take your $10 million RV there, and that's great. And so some of those people that have been there forever hate that, but then there's other people going, why can't we experience? Why can't we go enjoy this? Everything's gonna go through an evolution. And I feel like you can tell by some of these communities where we are consciously in our thought. Are we cutting off and we're judgmental and no one is allowed? Are we open and now allowing corporations and different people of different I'd say, orientations to, all these different types. And we continue to go through these cycles. And I think that we're just going to continue to do that. So there, again, no right and wrong. It's always just going to continue to evolve into something depending on where we are. And I feel like we're in this space where we're really trying to understand what the purpose and the origin of these things are and make sure that we're doing things in alignment with our values. But how do you do that when you have a bunch of people in a whole society that have different values? It's really tough to land on one truth. And so now that's why I think we start to see in this time is you're getting individuals like myself who have lived their entire life gay, I'm conservative, I walk around with a 1776 tattoo. I was raised a patriot. I am a patriot. That's not necessarily welcome in the gay community because it's largely very liberal. And so if I'm conservative, I must be against the gay people, and that's not the truth. So
that's very interesting.
It is very true. You have what they call the log cabin Republicans, or
what are those?
Well, those are the gay individuals who subscribe to being Republican or more the conservative. I'm more, I would say more on that libertarian type person. Because again, freedom and choice.
So you said you have a 1776 tattoo.
I do.
And then, okay, right there on your wrist.
Yeah.
And in the gay community, that is a little different than maybe the majority from a political standpoint.
Right.
Did you ever have like conversations? Did it ever come up?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. And for me, my goal is to always find common ground as much as possible, because I think I want to believe we're all after the same thing. And that's freedom, joy, love, wanting to be a part of a community. And so when you can find common ground in any community that you go into, that is sometimes work. You need to make sure you're armed with knowledge. You can't just walk in willy-nilly and saying shit and getting in trouble for it, because, but it's tougher than one would think. And I strive to find common ground no matter where I am, so I can get along with a bunch of different people and different communities, because I'm not coming in with, I'm fucking right and you're wrong, or classifying an entire group as this. And so going back to kind of the political beliefs, you find some people saying, well, if you're gay, then you're liberal, because liberals want for gay freedom and gay rights and yada, yada, and transgender rights. And so it's this classification that happens. But what about the people who aren't? I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you can and cannot do. Again, I err on the side of please don't harm. And please only go with age accountability where that they can make a choice. Let's not have children changing genders, because you just never know when they're going to want to change their mind or whatnot. We see this all over the place, but you're not going to get me on a pedestal saying, well, that's wrong and that's right. It's
fast. The transgender and then the wait, I'm going back, I guess.
There's a lot. Yeah.
I literally had a friend who was trying to explain this to me, and again, I'm so ignorant that I'm almost scared to even talk about it, because I never want to offend anyone out of a place of ignorance. But the way that they were describing it is these aren't just kids. Some of these are 20-something, 30-something year olds, right?
Yeah.
Like going back and forth. And it was this thing of just man, people are trying to figure out who they are, how they want to live their life, biologically, all these different things that it's just really, really hard if you don't go through it. Even I'm just talking to you and I'm like, hey, so how did two women in a relationship argue with each other? I have no clue how that works. Oh. Right? And you're same way that you and your wife argue.
Everyone's,
right? So there's more similarities than not. I don't know. It's just this fascinating thing.
And that's why I say we got to really be careful. I mean, there's things that I could have been really hardcore conviction on 5-10 years ago.
What's the biggest thing that you change your mind on?
Being gay.
Oh man, I walked right into that one. I have to say
that's probably the biggest change. I could have swore I would have bet you money I would have laid my fucking life down.
Did you ever have a guy try to convince you that you weren't gay?
Oh God.
I feel like that's a very guy thing to do.
It's guy, yeah.
Okay.
They're my favorite, and I'm not that girl.
Can I get
that'll get mad.
What is the best story you have about you interacting with a guy who's interested in you and you being Nah, dude.
So bar scene, obviously.
Oh, you're very excited to tell the story. I can't wait.
I love this because I eventually got him down from his mad streak after I turned him down. So we're in the bar. I'm with my friends. I'm with the gal that I'm dating at the time. And I go up to the bar to get my drink. And of course, this gentleman's standing next to me.
And you're by yourself?
I'm by myself.
Oh, okay. Perfect target.
Yeah. To my defense, I look very straight. And I've always dressed very feminine. I've always had my nails and the hair and all the things and the heels. So I roll up to the bar and I can tell he's checking the scene and I'm just, okay, working with the bartender, get my drink.
And you're trying to ignore him.
I mean, I'm not trying to ignore, but like I'm definitely reading his energy. This is what he's wanting.
Got it.
And he taps me on the shoulder and I said, hi. And he goes, hi. And he introduces himself.
Oh, got a handshake.
Yeah. I said, I'm Matt. I said, oh, I'm Elle. And he says, well, you're very beautiful. What are you doing here now? We're in a straight bar. Mm-hmm. Not that matters because it's, again, no labels. Everyone's welcome wherever they want. And so we're at a place where it's just mixed. And he's so, like, what are you doing here? I'm here with friends and it's great and everything's good. Like, we just get to chit-chatting. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, I would love to take you out sometime. And I was like, I said, like as friends or I'm assuming this is interest, right? Like I'm assuming you're interested in me. And he's like, yeah, in that fashion. Usually I'd say like, in what fashion? Like, how do you want to meet up? And he's like, because I want to take you out on a date. He's like, I want to call you and take you out on a date. I said,
has a guy ever talked to a girl at a bar, asked them to go to dinner or anything else and just want to be friends?
Only once. Okay. I've only had that once, and we're still friends to this day.
You're the first person ever in history.
He's never hit on me. Okay. Anyway, so I said, that is very kind of you. Thank you so much. I'm very flattered. However, I only exclusively date women. And he's like, you're just saying that because you don't want to go out. He's like, you don't want to fun. And he's starting to get his pride's a little hurt. And he's like, you're saying that, girls say you're fucking gay when they're not because you don't want to be with me. Just fucking tell me you don't want to date me. And I was like, he's like, no, you're lying. Like you've dated guys. Like you just tell me. I said, I've never dated a man. He's like, what do you mean you never dated a man? I said, well, I've never. He's
gonna defend the whole male species.
I've never been romantically involved with a man. He's like, well, that's why you're gay. This is my favorite. That's why you're gay. You've never met the right one.
You found a genius.
Yeah, this guy. Oh, man. He's like, listen, give me 10 minutes. And now I've got a beer in me, so I'm like, all right, that's all it takes. I'm lightweight. So like, I think he said 5 minutes. Like, give me 5 minutes. I said, 5 minutes? You're gonna take away 32 years in 5 minutes? My girlfriend and I go for 5 hours in the hot tub. What are you gonna do in 5 minutes? And he looked at, and I said it loud enough to the rest of the people in the bar are just like, oh, damn. I was like, it must be really fucking godlike with you in 5 minutes. And he just sunk. And now mind you,
he just like melted away?
You could just like, he got like an inch shorter. And of course, at the time I was just, full of piss and vinegar. And I could have been softer. I was trying to joke with him. I'm saying with a big old smile on my face. But now the whole bar's kind of looking at him and he's just like.
I'm gonna see my way out of this.
Oh, place. He just melted, crawled away. I mean, he was mad. I just go to the bathroom.
Be back next
crawled
week.
Away. I mean, later on I went over, I tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, dude, like I am serious. I wasn't lying to you, but come hang out with us. Like, don't.
Did he end up being cool?
And everyone was cool.
All right.
Yeah, but it was my favorite.
I mean, that's like a pretty good story.
I mean, 5 minutes.
The part that to me is fascinating, if I was in your situation or just like in a bar where that isn't like the first thought probably for a guy like that, and you kind of have like the upper hand. Because you're like waiting to pull out like the ace in your back pocket, right?
As to like,
cards, you could like screw him a little bit. Like I feel like he kind of got what he deserved.
Yeah, I mean he was a little obnoxious.
Now this guy's gonna like literally like leave a comment and be like, "Hey man, that was me, asshole." Right.
Still single? I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
See, he said 5 minutes,
yeah,
or
5 minutes.
or 5 years. But like,
just give me give me 5 more years and we'll be good. No, it's a trip. I will say that's why I said is I never want to sit here and say this is definite. I always understand that we have this journey, and ultimately we just want to experience as much as possible. My thing is just don't do harm.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to see people enjoy their life, and if this is something I can bring to the table, and iridology is fucking cool and it's great, and for me it's a window into someone. Because the conversations you and I are having are elevated. They're about pretty much everything that's going on.
People are going to be very mad that we had this conversation.
There's going to be a lot of things people are mad about.
It's all right. They'll get over it.
That's okay. It's fine.
I want to throw an idea at you, which is you're the type of person I would call a mental blender. You probably never heard this term before.
No, I've not. I love it.
When people hear your story and hear you talk, their minds will go into a blender because they can't compute. It's like literally like a overheating of their brains, and smoke may come out of their ears because they're like, wait a second, there is somebody who is a conservative gay who now has decided maybe they're not gay, who also has had a career in tech. A lot of people don't like the tech industry, but also is interested in iridology, and also is able to articulate how they think, feel, act in a way that usually most people can't. And then also is non-judgmental of other people. Like when you add all that up, it's like, wait, I thought that like conservatives were supposed to do this, or liberals were supposed to do this, or I thought gays this, or straight people like you put that in, and it's like, how many people, if you literally ask me, how many people check all those boxes? Like I've met one person in my life, you, right? Yeah. And there's other people that I've talked to who like are very unique in that they sit at the intersection of these things. But most people don't know how to interact with, compute, like they want to put you in a box.
Right.
And when you can't be put in a box, some people are like very threatened by it. Other people are intrigued by it. But it is this like very weird thing because most people you could put in a box.
Yeah.
Right? Now you may be wrong about the box you put them in, but like for most folks, you're like, okay, who are your conservative friends? You're like, got my 5 friends. Who are your liberal friends? I got my 5 friends, right?
Yeah.
When you know someone can't be put in the box, the reaction that people have is fascinating.
We're a wild card for sure.
Yeah. Right? Because they don't know how to, like, if somebody listens to this and then they meet you on the street, what do they talk to you about? They talk to you about iridology? Do they talk to you about, hey, you were gay, now you think you're not gay, but maybe you will be gay. Hey, you were engaged twice and then broke it off. Like, there's so many different things that I think most people are just like, we need more people like that, right? Like that's kind of the conclusion.
Right, and I appreciate you saying that. I want to encourage people to be okay to look into different things without the fear of judgment. You know, again, I fucking love this life. It's delicious. I get to experience what I want, when I want, when it's in alignment with me, and I do it in a way that I'd like to believe causes no harm and can be relatable to as many people as possible. All I'm doing is enjoying. I just carry on, and I'm an inquisitive individual. I'm extremely humanitarian. If I can find a way to help people, my energy usually goes there because that's just my goal. I want to spend my entire life being happy and helping other people. It's very tough, but society doesn't teach us that you can be like this. That all of a sudden you can be like, left turn, I'm gonna go over here, try this out. Look at jobs. I mean, I stayed in my tech career. I bounced out once or twice, but for 17 years, and it was extremely lucrative. But I finally got to this point where I was like, I'm growing beyond this to where I want to be able to say, I'm going to Ecuador and I'm going to go plant some trees and I'm going to take some eye pictures. And then I'm going to go talk about how we can transmute sexual energy and I can see sexual energy inside the eye and all that. Like
Can you do that?
Yes, you can.
Really?
Yeah. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Wait, whoa.
Oh yeah, here's another caveat. Here's one of my favorite things about the eye, total sidebar.
You can take a picture of an eye and see the sexual energy? What does that mean?
You can see if someone
is throwing that out there like this is
what I'm saying is like total like what my ex and I would call it the fried shrimp. Like just throw out something random and that is me. I'm an extremely inquisitive. I kind of want to know the truth about everything. And I don't necessarily don't want to experience everything, but I want to know about pretty much as possible, because I can then relate. And I can kind of be this chameleon within different communities, which I really enjoy because it's just the gateway to people, and I love people. So in the eye, there's a place that's called the sex impulse, and you can kind of see if someone's oversexed.
What does that mean?
High sexual energy, like
they have too much sex,
or as the individual, as what we would call in society, like a horn dog.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Who's just, I always think about sex.
The audience and I both very low IQ. Well, they have a high IQ. I have a low IQ, so you have to use very simple terms.
Yes. So horn dog, or someone who has an issue in that area, like, you know, we can tell if someone's maybe had abuse or whatnot. It's not always the case where it's black and white. Again, when it comes to iridology, there's always nuances and variances. But I've read some people who have a clear line within the sex impulse area, and I know right off the bat, this person's either highly sexed or they have a big issue around sex. And I love working with highly sexed individuals because highly sexed individuals are the most successful individuals on this planet.
Really?
Yes. If you take any multi-billionaire, whatever it is.
Bezos?
Right? Yeah, Bezos. We all know him. We've seen your girlfriend. No.
Guy's got a $500 million yacht and living a different life than he was 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so you look at some of these, and this goes back to, you know, I was handed Napoleon Hill, like I said, is my favorite author. But I was handed Think and Grow Rich when I was 11 years old. And it is one of my favorite books until Outwitting the Devil was released. And I love Outwitting the Devil even more so because it goes deeper into these. The need for sex expression as a human is the number one need. Need for sexual expression and love, but those are two different things.
What is need for sexual expression?
So sexual energy, or rather, it's not technically sexual energy to start with. Going back to the whole chakra conversation, there's this thing called, you know, the base chakra, the sacral chakra, kind of resides in the area of the lower regions and reproductive systems and such. Really, all sexual energy is creative energy, any day, all day long. It's literally the most powerful energy a human can create in their being. It also can create worlds and it can destroy worlds. We've watched sexual energy misused all over the place for our entire civilization. And so—
Is that like a Bill Clinton situation?
Yeah, or you know, look at the sex trafficking. We're not teaching individuals how to direct energy wisely. And so when I get someone who's overly sexed, usually they're pretty successful. You know, or successful at something, because it's a drive. It is just, I have to get this. Or they are having way too much sex, and that's just creative energy going out the window, right? Like, what are you actually doing with that energy? And so another one of my things, just going out there, what are you going to talk about on the road? One of my favorite subjects is how to transmute sexual energy to be more successful, healthier, happier, stronger physically. And it's like the number one thing for people who can.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. Is it one of the things like stop having so much sex so that you can use the energy elsewhere?
Yeah. So transmuting would be and it's not to say that you don't have it. It's a little bit different for men and women. Okay. Biologically, men, every time, I mean, we get super graphic, every time a man ejaculates, he loses a little bit of his life.
Really?
Yeah, because men take 30% of their life to create sperm, right? And so that's a large part of your existence, creating life-giving properties. So you get men who have this very sacred energy, and this is why fighters don't have sex, or
that's
athletes,
exactly what I was thinking.
They don't have sex before the night before. Why? Because they need all of that. They
go to like a camp, and sometimes it's like a month before.
Exactly, right? So there's evidence in science and biology, and obviously in the mental, where you can hone that energy a little bit and you shift it to other areas. And this is why you see some of the most successful men and women on earth, is because they knew, hey, I may not be going out there and putting all my energy into having sex all day long or whatnot, or porn's a big issue also, you know, where I'm just watching porn. I shift that and I went and built a business, or I went and, you know, built my body up to be a brick house, or I'm healthier, I'm happier, I'm smarter. Some of the most intelligent people have shifted that sexual energy to their education, you know? And so, you know, there's this, if you watch Seinfeld, it's one of my favorite shows, is the episode where Costanza, George, he stops having sex because his girlfriend's got mono. And it's so funny because you see all these examples throughout modern society, but we don't highlight it and we know it doesn't click because it's not taught. But he suddenly now remembers everything from high school. He's now speaking different languages. He's scientific now and all this. And then you get Elaine who isn't having sex and she goes stupid. So there's these differences.
Is that like, is there truth rooted?
There's truth to it, yeah. Wow. Because women thrive, or the female side thrive very much on, if you're more of the feminine energy, you thrive on the connection. That's what fuels you and that's what keeps you alive. And again, women were creating the babies, right? So that sexual expression is a little different. Now you get a very masculine energy heavy woman. Like I have a lot of masculine energy, so I'm a highly sexed individual, which means my drive is unstoppable. I just can't stop, won't stop. And when I do, that's when I allow myself to then enjoy that because one, it's fucking powerful. And two, I know that I've gone and created with that energy. I'm not just using it for whatever. And I think we have a lot of misuse of that energy in society, which is one of our biggest problems. And that's why we go so wrong. So I can see that in the eye and I'm inspired to help individuals.
Do you just like tell people? Like,
yeah,
your sexual energy's
I was like, well, so like, you're either really like you like to have sex a lot or you want to have sex a lot and you don't, or you have an issue and you don't know what to do with that and you feel shame around it or whatnot. And usually it's one or the other. And so it's really,
and they know.
Oh, they know.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
immediately.
It's one of the biggest things. Someone knows how much they want to have sex or do have sex or can't have sex or the sexual issue before they know about the lymphatic system any day. So that's part of it though, because if you get that non-physical energy flowing in the right way, you can actually find a rapid road to success in your health goals if you knew about that energy. It's just working with those different levels.
I saw a guy on YouTube, which I forget his name, unfortunately. He was talking about the rise of porn, especially on so many digital platforms, and the decrease of masculinity in society. And the comments were split. Like some people were like, yeah, this
I'm sure it was all over the place.
It's not, but it was fascinating, right? Where in terms of this, it's like the more accessible that is, the more outlet potential there is. And so therefore it's like not stored up energy that can be used elsewhere. Like it was like a fascinating way to look at it, but he didn't really get into like the science necessarily as much as this. But like, you know, you start to think about it, you're like, yeah, I bet how many, you know, I got a cell phone when I was, I think a sophomore in high school, and I felt like a baller. Oh yeah, right? Like all my friends started getting them when we were freshmen. So by the time I was sophomore and I got one, I was like, oh man, here we go. Yeah. And for those who are younger, listening or watching this, it was like T9 texting. It was not what is available today.
I miss those phones.
But I mean, there's kids now that I see them walking on the street. They're 8, 9 years old. They got cell phones. Yeah. Like, and there's positives to that. Like, amazing. You have the access of Google, right? You know, you see these viral videos, people using Alexa to go and, you know, do their homework or whatever. And so 4 or 5 year old, and you're like, like maybe you should learn the math rather than just ask Alexa.
Yeah, exactly.
But also there's like these downsides to it, right? And there's obviously the dangers of social media or whatever, but porn being one as well. And so it's like, you know, cell phones, I think, are probably a net positive, especially for adults, but for kids as well. But it does come with these downsides that like maybe do change society somehow. Right.
I mean, everything has a dark and a light to it, right? Same with sexual energy. I'm definitely not going to be on the side of don't ever have it and only transmute it. And I'm certainly not going to say go out and blow wherever you can. There's always going to have these energies. And the most powerful energies are, I think, when you look at society and find out where they're mainly focused, you know that there is something about that specific context that they are worried about and or trying to exploit. Sex is an amazing activity. The issue is if going just like the lymphatics is just like health, go back down to the basis, go back down to the very beginning levels of it. It's creative energy. You know, there was a time where we didn't have recreational sex. It was sex to procreate, because anytime we do that, you're gonna get pregnant, you're gonna have a baby. And so it was very conscious when you did that action. Why religion came in and started to try to put laws around sexual energy. So you have all these different schools of thought that are go out and sleep with whomever and do whatever and explore, and that's the spiritual way to do it. Or, and then you got the religious side that's like, nope, wait until you're married, and don't do it unless you only want to have babies. And so when I sat back and looked at it, I was very young when I got really intrigued with sex, because I was a highly sexual child and I didn't quite understand why that was. And so I've never, still to this day, not one night stand. I naturally did that, but I think it's because I picked up that book. And sex was always a big no-no in the family, because we were raised born again Christian. It's don't say the word, don't watch any movies in it. Everything was hush-hush. And I'm over here like, so I'm real curious now. What is it? And like, why is it saying no? Because if you're saying no, I want it. I want to understand what that is. I was very rebellious. Sex is simply expression, but it's expression of very, very powerful energy. And we can, like porn, I'm not the biggest fan, because I look at men, we need men to to encourage them to not waste their life force energy, but to use it wisely. And I think we're actually damaging men, to his point, by just allowing this access and basically encouraging them to do that. And I don't judge a guy who does. Look at society, it's what we've trained them to do. At any given point in time, go check out this girl, go land her, go, or guy, whatever, gay community, we'll see. It doesn't really matter, but go out there, get it, take care of it, and now you're good. Get rid of the urge. Well, the urge is just that knocking, I got something bigger, do something with this. This is like starting to get that urge. If you realize that urge, if you just sat with it for a second, it's kind of like hunger. If you just sat with it for a little bit, you'd find more clarity and you'd find a better drive, and you'd kind of like get some more insights about what to do with that, as opposed to just going and putting it somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I don't think in this lifetime, Napoleon Hill was a genius in my opinion, and what he was trying to convey to this world. But that conversation, even in my lifetime, I'm not sure we're gonna fully even be able to understand it. I would like to bring it to more
what's
consciousness.
Going on? I hope that you're enjoying this conversation with Elle. It was super fascinating and I really enjoyed it as well. Unfortunately, Elle and I talked about a couple of things that YouTube doesn't really like, and so we've had to cut it out of the interview. But rather than simply cut part of the interview and not let you know that something's missing, I decided that we should tell you when we're being censored. Right now is one of those times. Elle and I are discussing something that YouTube doesn't like. You might see me again later on in the conversation, but I wanted you to know that something in the interview got changed. Let's get back into the interview with Elle. I hope you guys enjoyed the rest of the conversation.
Where can we send people to find you on the internet? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in talking to you.
Very busy, thanks to you.
Pictures of their eyes? Or they got other questions?
Best thing to do, obviously social media is fantastic. I'm bigger on Instagram. Show me your set. And
for those that didn't hear, that's literally her Instagram handle.
Show me your set. Thank goodness, up until now, don't get any wise ideas, everyone else. I have not seen any other sets than the eyeballs. But you know me, you gotta get playful with this, right? So showmeyourset.com, show me your set on Instagram. And those are the best places to find me. It's where I usually put most of my content and so forth, so. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it very much for you coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation today. I learned a ton. I feel I was dumb when I started. Now I'm a little less dumb, but I think people will really have enjoyed this, and we'll definitely do it again in the future. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And I love what you're doing with your podcast and the conviction around how you're going about it, and bringing value add to the world. I'll end with this. I live by a philosophy, and it's
render useful service first in the amount of everything that you require and want and desire on a material level, but render that service first. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And it's been a pleasure to be here. And I've had a blast. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone.